All right, thanks, guys. It is 2 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. Welcome to the close. Here we go into the final couple of hours of trading for a Monday. Pretty red right across the board. It is the NASDAQ leading the way to the downside in the U.S. A full percentage point now to the downside, 0.84 there for the Dow. The S&P about 0.65. TSX here in Toronto, 0.9 to the downside. Nothing overly volatile happening this afternoon, just kind of a steady kind of sell-off right across the board. 0.5% for crude. You can see, both Bitcoin and Ethereum back in negative territory as well. Here we go. The state of affairs right now, really only positivity coming from the healthcare group of all places, utilities standing out as well. Moderna up 7% today. Pfizer 4.7. Bristol Myers there having a nice day as well, 5%. But all of the pharmaceutical companies pretty much Regeneron there, interestingly enough, down 2.5%. ALGN 5% to the downside. Everything else in the equipment makers nicely higher on the day as well. Look at energy. We just saw oil negative on the day. See, negative. Here's all the energy stocks. Halliburton 5.5%, Apache MRO and Oxy all 5% to the downside. Consumer discretionary. It's the travel names really that are leading here. Wow, look at Tesla. I just noticed 6.2% to the downside. Retailers in negative territory, industrials and transports as well. Redness right across the board to kick off a brand new trading week. It is much of the same if you bring up the NASDAQ and have a look at that. We'll talk about some of the chip makers coming up here. We'll talk about both AMC and GME because wow, what a Monday for both of those to the downside. It is pretty ugly. Let's kick things off, though, with a few ideas we were talking about. If you joined us at 8:30 this morning when we go over the watch list and come up with a game plan for the Open at 9:30, Neil's going to kick us off right now with a review of one of his trades.
Yes, sir. I'm going to jump right in. And because there was some pressure in the market today, I'm going to go over NVIDIA, which was not a winning overall trade. Now, we had some success with it trying to catch a falling sword and catch some bottoms. But overall, we want to cover losers and talk about how to manage them and our thought process in them instead of just going over winning trades. So a couple of things here. You're going to see NVIDIA has been under a lot of pressure. Now, with the threat of raising rates a little bit sooner because the Fed speeding tapering, a lot of higher valuation names have been under pressure. So you have seen NVIDIA on my 60-minute chart, by the way, seeing NVIDIA pull right back in, very strong move from 325 into a 300 level at the end of the week. So it actually ended on Friday in sort of making this nice reversal, bouncing off of 298.5 or so was the bottom, and getting right back above that 300 mark. Last time it was in this price range and powered through, had some support at 97. You had a nice little sort of chop break to hold us above that $300 level. So those are the things that I was looking for a dip buy. That's where I wanted to see a turn. A couple of things immediately go awry. Lack of patience at the open is usually a big deal when you go to that first downside trade. And look, I just showed you looking at that 298.5 area that we're talking about, and then first violation was getting long in front of 300 because 300 is a round number. And you can't do things like that. If I like 98.5 as a bit of a level, and I like that 97 as an absolute bottom, well, you can't be getting long until it goes to that 298. So what ends up happening, we get too many shares at 300, we end up getting a stop, and this is actually a bad trigger because I put a stop in the wrong place, and then we get out way too early. We saw the bottom hold, I just jumped right back in because that's what you're supposed to do. And from this point on, whenever I'm doing a catch a falling sword or a dip buy off the open, I'm always going to want to scalp a portion out. The reason for this is if the trend continues to the downside, in this case it does, but it doesn't always. If the trend continues to the downside, I'm taking out a couple of dollars worth of profit on a portion of the position, a quarter, a third, and that does two things for me. It's banking some profit so that if it eventually breaks down, you lose a little bit less. Now, you're paying for that some other way, and that's, of course, if it does hold this level, instead of trending down, we get nice higher lows, and we bust out to 310, well, you have less shares on board. That's the price of scalping a little bit out at the beginning to make sure that you're taking some profit as you go, and essentially counter trend when you're going to be buying the dip. Now, things we're going to plan, the second time it comes down to that 97 level, I let it bounce, show a little bit more patience, and then it comes a third time, it bounces off my level. I take the shares that time. It's now held that support, bit of a double bottom. Okay, fair enough. We get some out here in front of that, in between that 99 to 300 level, and we figure, okay, at this point, if we're going to break back out, next target right up around 301, 302. But here's the thing. At this particular time, the market was looking relatively weak. So you had to have a notion of a hard stop. And when that 297 went, we simply got out. A lot of times, and I talked about this, and the reason I want to go over this trade is, look, there was no way that buying the dip was going to win. You could mitigate your losses by taking profit a couple of times and having a tight stop. And so overall, you're closer to a flat trade than ruining your day. That's what I wanted to show you. But the other part of this that's very, very important. If you ever find yourself with a level like that where it's clear out to you, you like it on the higher time frame, it's your line in the sand, and once it breaks this level, you see it then immediately end up as resistance only moments later, that signals a good idea for reversal. You don't have to reverse here, and you don't have to reverse here either, but when it puts in another test and rejects that level at about 96, suddenly that's a pretty good entry point. Now, obviously a lot of this is hindsight, so I'm trying to make sure that as I go over this, I would have done it on the train home, but as I go over this trade, I look at not just what I could have done differently with the long, but how could I have been with the trend, even if you're joining it late. It doesn't matter if you join a trend late if you're going to be able to work with that trend for a good size winner and a good risk to reward trade. In this particular case, you know you're out back at that 27, or if you're frisky, give it to VWAP. Plenty of downside room, of course. As you look back down below those prices, you've got a lot of runway to the bottom if we continue to the downside. So overall, NVIDIA, not a winning trade trying to buy the dip here, but a lot to learn from it, and that's what it's about here at Trader TV Live.
Yeah, it was a busy morning if you joined us at 8:30 this morning with the watch list. That is not it. The watch list, guys, absolutely free to you every single day. Thanks, guys. It's Monday. Give us a minute. Absolutely free to you every day when we come on at 8:30. That and more were on the watch list this morning. Moderna, we talked about NVAX as well with its own positive catalyst. They applied for emergency use in the United Arab Emirates for their vaccine. So we'll touch on NVAX here as well coming up. Wanted to mention a couple of things here, though, to kick things off, starting with a few big movers, as I talked about off the top there. AMC, 16%, May lows, new May lows. Okay, GameStop then next on the list here, 12%, now at April lows. And Robinhood, 5.5%. Yep, all-time lows, guys, for three stocks that we've been trading quite a bit this year, talking about even more this year, not having a good end to the year at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here saying to myself, like, and I've probably said this the last time AMC went down, to be honest with you, that there are setups that you like, and sometimes you just put it on in the most bearish stock that you can find, and there's no getting around it. Ever since we, got out of this cluster of support that AMC had with this 35, the 50 period, it was, look, that was ultimately like the last time it went parabolic, right? Like this is a 30 low here from that move, and then it was supporting a 35 higher low. So this entire time, back in September, over in October, things would have been absolutely fine in putting in a higher low, settling down, holding up at some pretty reasonable support levels. And since that's been broken, it's ended up, even on this pullback here, you end up with resistance at 34. It's just been a pretty good momentum short, and there's no way around it here. This is a case where I should have been paying a little bit more attention. You had Friday afternoon tops at 27.7, like 27.8 or so in the afternoon, and then you had a failure of rolling over at 9:30 at that exact price. And I like that setup. I'm always a big fan of that particular setup. It doesn't matter what kind of stock it's in, right? That's a setup I'd take in just about anything. It doesn't really make a difference if you're gapping up or you have a strong downward trend and you have a bit of a consolidation up. You get a push in the pre-market and then a consolidation off of those highs, and then it tries to get past those highs. You get a clear failed break. You can take it as a 27. Even when it breaks down, you could take it up here 27.40. But once you're not in the trade, it's hard to look at it, and it's easier. Psychologically, we always want to try to short the top and go long at the bottom, right? So it can be a little bit difficult once the move is in. Start asking yourself why you're not shorting it on volume through 26 here. But AMC, at least for now, put in a triple bottom. It's trying to get back up here. It needs to hold like a 22.80 to 23, which it's trying to do. But this trend really hasn't been broken yet. It's just a matter of finding a way to settle down here. And I don't think the Fed in the next couple of days is necessarily helping anything. But We'll definitely have to see. I don't have a very good excuse, and I think a lot of the times it comes down to I always prefer the big cap, like more expensive, like the Modernas and the Affirms for that setup, or like a small cap gapper. Right, and because that's been the preference for the greater part of the year, I don't necessarily look for it in AMC or even GameStop. And then when it's there, it's just a missed opportunity. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice here. Sorry, I'm in BFRI, which I actually said in Trader Prad in the chat when Prad was on load. That I'd made top wick, which I had, like actually gotten short at basically 40s as an average price, and then made top wick when it broke 50, and then I got short again, and actually had my stop through the high of the day. It holds the high of the day, so I'm going to take some profit here, see if we can't work out of this one down towards view up. Incredibly strong stock, so my stop is remaining at the top, and I'm really only looking for it to come back into view up.
For me, GME, forget AMC. GME was the trade for me. Man, that 148 break. We've been looking at 148. I think Friday we were looking at it because of the way it was trading below 150. And then when it got to 148, I was like, okay, this could be a nice little move. I was waiting for a little bit of information. Yeah, I guess waiting was too long or too much on a move like this because it just took off. There it was gone. By the time I got the order out, it was about $1 away and then it never came back. So it was gone. And it was a clean, what, 10 bucks from the 148 move to the downside. And now what does that set up? This is the thing, right? Now you can set up some next levels that you can potentially work with. 152 is still in play. Resistance is still going to be in there around that 144 going up to 148. So there's still potential short available. Now, for anyone who wants to go long, where's your breakout long? 152. So it has to still go up 12 bucks or so to clear any resistance before you can actually get a move to the upside towards the 160s. So we do have a decent ways to go before longs could be on the table. Of course, you could play with old levels, old support, or old previous resistance levels, which could act as support on the way down. But I mean, trend is to the sell side. We've been essentially since 180 all the way to 140. It's been somewhat negative, right? Since we fell off on the 8th, we've been in a negative bias on the stock, and it looks like the levels are starting to declare themselves on the offer here. So it does look like it's going to be hard to find some longs on GME for the time being. Obviously, that could all change later on, but for now, it looks like downtrend in play. 144 going up to 148 is going to be resistance. 152 would have to be the break point for any longs. At this point, you miss a trade, but you can definitely keep an eye on these levels. I definitely will tomorrow. I'll keep an eye on these levels, and if there's a trade tomorrow, I'll try and get my hands on it. Piton, though, absolutely going nuts. Now, remember, we were short. Neil and I were both short north of 40. I got 40.20s. He had 40.60s. We were short up here, and as you can see from this chart, we kind of rode this one out, at least from my chart here. I rode this one out all the way to 38. I let it break 38, got some out of 38.20, and got the rest out just before this run started happening all the way back up to 40. And the reason why, actually, this is a 1 minute chart, it should not be a 1 minute chart. The reason why I dumped this around 38, why? Because we hesitated here on Friday. This is the same area that we spent a lot of volume at on Friday, and then here we are back again, kind of hesitating at the same level. So definitely got to mark off this 37.5 maybe as the bottom end break for Piton. Of course, to the upside, you have that 43, but the more that it keeps bouncing off this 38 even level, the less this short looks appealing to me. It requires more and more of a setup. Remember Friday, I just stepped in, took the short off the initial pop. Today, I waited for a little bit, then took the short. Now, if we go back there again, I'm going to need much more of a setup for me to go short again, because it looks like we're finding a nice little base to work with around 38. So going short, I would imagine you'd be running into some buyers as well, looking to push this through 43. So keep an eye on, the levels are there, but if we do get a move, an aggressive move, it would have to be outside of the bands of either 43 or 37.50.
Yeah, nice bounce for a lot of these types of stocks. Peloton included this afternoon, back to almost day highs. I was just looking at this one as well. Rivian, guys, if you missed it this morning, Crown, Motor Trend's 2022 Truck of the Year already. It's not even 2022 yet. But a nice look for Rivian today. I just noticed as well, relative volume on Rivian definitely higher than usual on the day.
Yeah, and you know what? Like on a day like today, you're just going to want to see things that are holding up I guess, pretty nicely. Obviously, Rivian's still in the same channel. I guess in the 15-minute chart, we'll show that a little bit better. So the day trade, not necessarily there. Obviously, I think we both like Lucid today to have a little bit more volatility. As a matter of fact, there's someone in the chat's like, why are you guys talking about the meme so much today or so much? Because, yeah, like today, like honestly, like when you're day trading, it just doesn't, like you cannot look, if you're a day trader looking for momentum, you cannot be watching this market, see the type of move that GameStop and AMC make today, and with the ability to go in both directions, just as a momentum trader, like you've got to be looking for opportunities like that. You can't write them off because of some label that gets put on them. I just, that's just not a good sound way to make money. It's the same thing when they're going up. Like I could be the first person to tell you that I didn't think GameStop was worth like 300 or 400 or whatever, but you know what? I was that same guy punching long as well when it was giving you those big wins. So like it is what it is. Like you've got to trade what moves. Rivian, until it breaks out of this range, I just never seem to have a trade. It's like 124, 125 up here that I think it's got to break back through, and until it does. I mean, I was looking, if it goes as far as 110 to the downside, okay, fine, I'll catch that bid. It never really dipped that far. I think it's great that it's holding up on a day where, I mean, NVIDIA, like you said, that couldn't work out for me. Tesla getting woodshedded all day long, essentially finding no bid. Lucid getting crushed. I know Lucid turned around a little bit here, but all morning it was getting crushed 37, but the fact that Rivian is going to hold up and have some stability in a downward market, it's holding right in the middle of this consolidation range. It kind of tells me that if we do get a nice little bounce and we make it through this, I guess Tuesday, Wednesday of Fed, Rivian's set up to break out at 125. But until it gets to that level, I don't want to be over trading it. So, there's just no obvious setups. And speaking of not over trading it, BFRI, once again, it gives you one of those, how you doing? We'll give you a little bit of a win here. We'll give you 20 pennies, and then we'll stop out for like a 12-cent hit at the high of the day again. So at least this time I was able to get some out for profit before it broke. But BFRI now breaking out through the high. There's another one moving to that PTPI. It's high of the day at 420, so watch out for that. That one I'm not really into the short yet. I'll probably take a shot at it if it gets to the teens. But again, if it breaks that high of the day, I'm just out. No fighting that one.
As Neil mentioned, Rivian, wide range, not exactly the best location to be trading for a day trader. But Lucid providing an opportunity. I traded this morning. I had a long on the initial drop into 39, and then once it failed 40, I was like, you know what, maybe I should just walk away from it. Took a small little win there, and then it continued to fall and now has bounced back up. This would confirm what I was seeing. Initially, when I went long, the stop was going to be 35. So the fact that now we're establishing support, or the support was already there, so we're just confirming it, and we're coming back into 39. There's still a nice little long available here. Do I want to go long? It's 2:20 in the afternoon. There's about just over an hour and a half left into the day. Of course, this could still rally, so it's going to require some solid setups for me to actually go for this long. So, but there is nice little support to work with. 35 is still going to be your stop. Lucid is probably the better of the trades, given the way Rivian's moving inside of its range. So we'll keep an eye on Lucid. Maybe there's a trade to work with.
All right, another popular request coming your way in this video, guys. We're going to discuss a few very basic but very opportunistic ways that you can use candlesticks as a part of your everyday trading. We're not going to get overly complicated here, just give you a couple of ideas, very basic, simple ways that you can use what you're seeing on the chart, what you're seeing in the form of the candlesticks that can maybe help you get you a little bit of a hint as to what might come next.
Yeah, and at the very start of this, of course, I'm going to do a brief explanation of just what a candlestick is for everybody and why you're going to be looking for some of these things. So, your typical candlestick, I just happen to have NVIDIA up, and we'll pick this massive green one, this green bar here. So what you have is the body of the candle on your left side, because we read things from left to right. So on your left side, because it's green, I know that it opened and then closed at a higher price. That means it was up on the day, so therefore the left body, that is the open price, and then the right here is going to be the close. The bottom of the wick, that is the low of the day, and this is the high of the day. So open and close embodied by the candle, and then a red candle will be the reverse. I know that the top of that candle is on the left, where it would have opened on that session, and then it would have closed at the bottom. So you get that out of the way, and I want to explain something like whether you call it and I don't have a perfect example of a doji, but we can look at this one here, right? When you talk about these tiny bodies and a long wick, and that's what I want to get into. Now, a better example of it might be right here. It's not that tight, but you have a very, very tight body relative to the long wick in a bit of a downward trend. And that typically signals a bit of a reversal. I want to tell you why that is the case, right? So you have a stock which is pulling back. You had a high at 350. You then had a lower high 330. You can see it grinding down. And then it actually breaks 300 NVIDIA on this particular day. So what this long wick is telling you is that you had trade action of huge volatility through that 300 price all the way down 20 points. But that despite how far it went down and traveled so far so fast, it ended up closing well above the lows. Like not a little bit above the lows, well above the lows. And in an actual doji, like you'll have it even tighter than this in a lot of cases where the body is even smaller. And that simply tells you that you had a massive rejection of the price area below the bottom of that candle. Yes, it traded down. They're likely in panic, and a lot of times that'll happen. This is a daily chart at the open, and then you had a rejection of those levels as the price immediately and quickly recovered to close above. And that tends to be bullish, whether in the form of gapping up the next day or whether in the form of continuing a move to the upside. Now, the thing about that is it is not always true that it's going to hold a trend. Understand something, and this is why I actually picked NVIDIA because, NVIDIA, I just, in our trade of the day, showed you why a long was going to be a losing trade. Understand that fundamentals and market events are going to blow everything out of the water, right? So when you have an overall market sentiment, which is waiting on something like the Fed, and then you have signals of the taper coming through and then possible raising of rates, high valuation names are going to get blown out of the water. And sometimes chart patterns aren't going to matter so much in the aftermath of that. Now, obviously, looking at that pattern the next day, if you were to pick it up in the pre-market, you had an opportunity for a long, but it didn't hold up because overall market circumstances were against you. But understand first what the candle is telling you, and then try to understand why that pattern of the really, really tight body and the long wick, and it works in both directions. What is that really saying? It's saying that there was a harsh rejection of the majority of that price movement, and then the volume wanted to come back in, accept it at a higher level, meaning there were no sellers down at those prices. They just did not want to sustain the selling down there, and that can be a signal of a reversal. So understand those basics first, and then other patterns make more sense.
When it comes to candlesticks, I noticed that there, especially candlestick, I guess, education, people have terms for certain 2-bar patterns, 3-bar patterns, whatever the case is. I chose Docu to kind of explain this a little bit here. I don't know what the terms are, right? But at the same time, I also don't care what the terms are because I want to look at what the candles are telling me. Neil mentioned, depending on the color of the candle, they're color coded. So obviously, if it's red, it opened higher, closed lower, and then the wicks would tell you how far the extreme points are. But what I want to know is where's the volume? That's what I want to see. So I kind of pair the tails and the bodies depending on how they cluster together. So on DocuSign here earlier, you notice that initially on this move here off the open, we went as high as 146 and then fell back and closed that 5-minute bar. This is the 5-minute chart, by the way, at 145. Okay, that's good to know that they're rejecting 146. We went down, went back up. And then there's another move that went through 146 and brought it back down to 145. Now, I believe, I don't know if it's called a cloud cover or something, but anyways, regardless of what it's called, now I know just based on the way it's moving around 146 that there's a lot of action on the sell side. Although they're trying to buy, there's a lot of action on the sell side. More attempts at going up through 146 are being essentially brought back down. As soon as you bring it down through 146, now if I wasn't looking at DocuSign at this point, but as soon as they take it through 144.50, which would kind of get you through this bottom, that would confirm all the selling you saw up top. Now what do? Okay, I know there's some selling here. Where do I put my stops? How do I look at this? Let's zoom this out. And a lot of the times when I'm on the show, I kind of just do this where I'm like, oh, I want to see what the structure looks like. Well, the reason I want to structure this is, what does this look like? They're selling at a location where there's already been previous selling on Friday. So this would give you more confidence in like, oh, you know what? There's a decent amount of sell activity around the 146. Now I know by looking further back that there's actually a ton of action around that 146.50, 147 mark. So maybe shorts are good at this price point. Now, had I looked at it, that would have been a nice little short. I didn't, so I went for the short here at 142. So this is the way I like to use candlesticks, regardless of what these patterns are called. It really doesn't matter because you just need to understand the structure or the volume structure. Because at the end of the day, everyone just looks at candlesticks to help determine where's support, where's resistance, what is the rotation, is there going to be more selling or buying. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they're called. Just figure out where the selling's taking place, where the action is taking place. And then when you have a good understanding of where it is, and you can start to notice that, you know what, they're really trying to get past this level, but they're not getting there. Then you start working, maybe apply some of those names that are attached to these candles, and then you go for the trade. But what matters more than names of setups is the actual structure of the candles and how they are in relative to the rest of the volume that's been at certain prices. In this case, it was around that 146.50 into that 147 level from Friday's volume.
So whether you're looking for something along the lines of an entry point or whether you're just maybe trying to identify when a trend has come to an end, not necessarily even a trend reversal, but just the end of the current move, understanding exactly what is constructing each candle and what that data is telling you is a great way, guys, to get very, very clear hints when you're in a trade. It's that simple. Thanks. Here comes Apple. Apple back to the downside a little bit today, a little bit of a pullback after we almost got to 3 trillion. Very, very close there, right off of the bat, 182, right out of the open. What was that price? 182.15. It was 182.82, I believe, was the price we were looking for 3 trillion. But I mean, overall, a constructive day. This daily chart tells the story of Apple.
182.86, like it's splitting hairs, man, up at that price. Like you just call it 183, I think, for just to keep things simple. I liked the bounce off of 179.50. I mean, it closed at 179.45 this morning. I got the 15-minute chart up just so you can. You got to see the context of what happened last week and just how strong the move up in Apple was, off of a double bottom here at around 160, and then you're putting in a well over 10% move. It's about 12.5% when you got to that 180, and it just couldn't get back above. Like I was able to get some out 180s, was able to then dip back in. It looked pretty solid. Like we were about to break the 182. I was holding through there and then wanted to see if it could get to 182.86, like we mentioned, that 3 trillion mark. It just couldn't do it. Once it retook 178, I got out of it. I'm actually looking at this right now. I mean, like Apple has gone so far to the upside that I feel like it was, even as the market's bouncing here, it's having some trouble, right? Like it used to be the story where if I saw Microsoft, holding up like this, holding up a little bit better, just broke VWAP. It's only a couple of percentage points. It's not a heck of a lot, but still holding up a little bit better. And that's just because of what Apple has done recently. Oh, just, sorry, we're still trading here, obviously. So I got to come over to that PTPI because that just took out that 420 top. So a fresh high just got made. This time, I didn't reverse in BFRI, and you guys can see what happened in BFRI. 750 reversal, just went to $8. So on PTPI, I did just reverse at 420. Just going to the daily chart, you can see 445 right here on the top. Popped my 15-minute if it wants to load up. It would see a little bit better. But I'm definitely going to take some shares out in front of this 450 level and then up to $5, hopefully. But BFRI is already gone. Let's see if PTPI will follow it, a high of the day break. I just think Apple needed a bit of a pullback. I thought it would get closer to that 3 trillion mark before it did it. Clearly, that was wrong today. It was great on Friday for the dip buy today. Just didn't work out.
I had Apple short, and I was getting ribbed for being short on Apple. And it worked out nice. Well, I would have hoped it. I got really close to getting my first exit. It was off by a few pennies, just didn't get low enough. And I was sitting just in front of this 177. I think it got as low as 177.10. I was like 177.06 or something. So I didn't get the fill on the first half. So I ended up just managing my way out of this. Still walked away with like a 45-cent winner or so. But it would have been nice to have like $1.90 or so on the first half at least. But I'm done with Apple. The short was nice, but then once the trail hits, you're done, right? What's the next read on Apple? It would have to be the high break, 182 and change. And that's about it. There really isn't a whole lot that I can see. After that management exit, I'm not sure what I can do with Apple at this point. But I did notice in the chat, people were asking about different types of indicators. So I just want to put this out there. And I do want to say this is my approach. It doesn't have to be everyone's approach, but this is my approach. As you can see, a lot of my charts, or if all my charts actually, don't have indicators. I'm just straight up, it's a blank canvas. And the reason for this is I found, and this is from my experience throughout the years, I found that indicators will sometimes help you and sometimes not. The confidence in indicators are not there. Reason being, it makes sense. Some indicators are meant for ranging markets. Moving averages are meant for trending markets, and the markets are never going to correlate or tell you what kind of field you're dealing with, right? You don't know if it's going to be a trending market or a trending stock today, or if it's just going to range. Obviously, they have their strengths. In a ranging market, stochastics are going to do really well. Or in trending stocks, you're going to have moving averages do really well. At the end of the day, all they're trying to do is tell you where the volume is, or at least pay attention to certain points. Now, on an intraday basis, I don't really care. What I do is I just look at the charts, figure out where the volume is, as I mentioned with the candlestick reading portion of our little video there. I just look at the charts and I want to see where the volume is. Show me support, show me resistance. I can gauge it based on what I'm seeing on the level 2, and I don't care for indicators. And that's my approach. I'm sure there's a case to be made for indicators being useful. But again, this is from my experience over north of 15 years or so. I've just come to find that indicators it just makes things worse for me. At least they just overlay the charts with a bunch of different lines, and it just makes a lot of conflicting signals, makes me overthink my trades. And then I tend to miss trades, and then I wonder why it was working so great one day and then it's not working today. And I'd rather just trust the volume. So my approach is just straight up volume, blank charts, and let me see the level 2 and judge what I'm seeing on the tape, and maybe I can get a better handle on how things are going just by looking at the raw data.
I'm going to try this. I don't know what this key does. What is this? I don't know. Like, Rob reconfigured my our stream decks, and I was like, I saw a key, and I'm like, I don't even know what this thing does. So I was like, I'm just going to hit it and see what happens. I should have done the mic drop because I think that was fantastic knowledge there, Arun, obviously, and I can't say that enough. Like, you have to do what works for you. I think we can always learn from other thought processes, but ultimately you've got to find ways to make your own quality decisions, right? You evaluate your own decision making. I just noticed a big move. I mean, you guys just I didn't notice a darn thing. Sunrun here just had a big spike down $2 just moments ago. It bounced and recovered back to 41.50, but making some power moves to the downside. We'll get the news in just a brief second. It is immediately recovering. I can tell you right now, anytime you see flash news like this, when it recovers back into this range of 42, 42.20, I'm always looking to reverse something like that, but I want to see what the news was. And PTPI still in that reversal. It looks like BFRI, by the way, just to cover some of these other runners. BFRI it had rejected a break at $8. At least it looked like it. There was a bit of a capitulation candle, and now it's right back up to the top. So maybe this one's not necessarily done. It looked to the world right here when it dropped into 770 that this was going to have another push in it. It looks like maybe that's not. It's had no more push in it, and it was going to drop. That might not be the case. That's a very, very strong sign. Whenever you're able to recover right back above the high, when it looked like it was going to fall into VWAP like that, I already had 2 shorts in this. First one didn't do anything for me. The second one was kind of like a muted win, and then we took a small hit on the back end of it. So I'm not really ready to jump in and fight this one. Someone asked for some levels in this name, and I sort of just went back to the 15-minute, and I can show you the last day it was up here. It did travel and have a semi-head and shoulders, if I can kind of show you here. When it spiked up to 10, if you look at the pre-market top, like that the morning top 880, and then in the afternoon an 875 area as well. So that's probably your first area of resistance. Then up to $10 on BFRI, but Sunrun now in play for me. BFRI, obviously I'm already in PTPI. We're getting some movers here going into the close, Arun.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I move on to the stocks, I just wanted to mention one thing about the indicator thing. Although I don't pay attention to moving averages, there are some on a daily basis that I think are very helpful. The 50, the 100, and the 200, and the reason I say that is because there's institutional program buying around those levels. So big time activity, not on the intraday basis, obviously, and they rarely come into play. But when you get to that 50, the 100, or the 200, you're going to see some big action on the volume side from the institutional program. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And I do look at those on the daily level for the futures. Now, going back to positions I've picked up a Boeing position here along north of 197.50. It's done a nice little base here through 197 into the 197.50. We kind of went back and forth. There seems to be enough buying for me to warrant taking a shot, so I am taking a long here, and it's not much. If you get back underneath 197, 196 and change, it's below 197, but I'm giving it about 20, 30 cents in slippage there. If you get back underneath that, I'll just dump it. I'll take the hit, $1.50, $1.70 or so in a hit, and we'll walk away. But if we get back up to the upside, you know I'm looking for that 199.50 into the 200s. That's something to keep an eye on. And the other position I have, which I dumped, is Boeing. Now, not Boeing, Pfizer. I've had Pfizer all day for the most part. We caught it right off the open, 53.13, and got some out in front of 54, and we just dumped the last little bit below 55. So that batch is gone now, and we're completely just out of Pfizer's position. So we're going to move on, and the only thing I'm going to hit for that is that one there, Pfizer.
I like it.
There you go. There's your sniper shot. And I think that was my good little move on Pfizer, because I got rocked on Home Depot this morning, because I did the same thing on Home Depot and just ran me over. So nice little move there to go. And as you know, you were talking about Sunrun, and chat was talking about Chat was talking about
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah. I'm looking at GBTC on the downside here.
Yeah, I mean, I did mention this in the chat, but I mean, obviously, if you weren't paying attention last weekend, which I'm assuming all of you were, look, there was the flash. I mean, whatever you want to call it, you call it flash crash, Evergrande, not whatever you want to say. Where we bottomed at 4,200. I mean, really? 6,900 the top, 4,200 the bottom. Anyways, 42,000 the bottom. But it was holding support at 47,000. I think the pressure to the downside, once that got broken, you just had a bit of an acceleration. So major support broken, at least in the short term. And then if you were paying attention on that morning, which I know I was, 46 was that first area of support when it wicked back up and held. So we're in a very critical point here. I think if 46 goes, you could see sort of like one of those like rapid pullbacks, but you could also get a bit of a bounce here through. As a matter of fact, I think we very, very briefly just kind of cracked it here. I'm just looking at Binance charts. So 46 did get taken very briefly and then came back in. I can try another one of these for you there, because Rob's like, can you test these out? Make sure they're still working, and then I hit that random one that didn't work. That will be for PTPI. Just got someone at 433, but I was asked about CRM, that it's got a nice wedge in it. Look, I'll be the first person to tell you, when CRM came down for like 2 or 3 days, I said CRM is a name on the shopping list, and I like 250 as a level on this thing. And I can also tell you that I did not get any shares back in. It bounced off that 200 period moving average pretty nicely. Didn't quite get there, and I really thought it might get a little bit closer, and then it just never materialized for me. I also did say that sometimes you want to get things on the upswing. It's a great forming wedge, and sometimes you want to let it break before jumping in. Otherwise, the buy point is still at that support level. I don't know why this 15-minute chart doesn't want to load. Try to keep in mind, if you're trying to dip buy anything for the long term, what's going on with my 15-minute chart? Anyways, there you go. It's just to want to pull back, so I'll stay on the daily. If you're buying anything this week, sometimes it's an okay idea to wait. Like, allow the Fed to, you're going to have Powell and the Fed for 2 days worth of meetings, and you're likely to get a substantial update, at least in terms of, you know, an indication of when there might be a raised rates here. We're definitely expecting the taper to be twice as fast, which means it's done in, if it is, it's done in March, and they can start raising rates that early if the dot plot changes significantly. All things that you have to start considering, and you don't have to jump into these things too early. Obviously, this is a great looking setup for a 271 break, but like I said when we were talking about the candlestick patterns, you can throw some of this stuff out the window if you get major news, make it major market events. So, you know, obviously I made a bit of a bungle not adding to CRM at 250. It's going to happen to you. I wanted to add this one to like a firm at 106, which are literally the only two things that I bought recently, because I'm looking to see what happens post-Fed here and the changing environment that we're going to be in. I mentioned PTPI. I will also show you the chart quickly as it continues. It's not as good as BFRI. Like, obviously I didn't reverse BFRI at 750, and that would have been a heck of a lot better for me there. But the 420 break, it doesn't really pull back very far. You know, holds up here at that original short entry price of 12, only 10 cents against. Then we're able to immediately take 10 cents out to the upside, actually a little bit more than that. And then if it breaks out the high, I'll get some more shares in front of 450. If it continues to hold this 410, fantastic. We might have one to go into the close. But I'm going to be banking profit with only about an hour and 20 minutes left in the session. There's no just hold on forever to try to hold it to $5. That's the kind of thing you might do in the morning. I already did miss a short on this one where we got stopped at a 365. So just trying to make it back with the long trade in BFRI. Don't know if we'll get back, in PTPI, don't know if we'll get back into BFRI, but it just rejected $8 a second time.
I was looking at EPAM just now, EPAM in New York. I was like, man, that looks like a nice little break. And then I actually looked at the level 2. I was like, oh, no, we can't do that. It's 668.71 by 669.95, $1.20 spread, 1.1 million shares, and he just took out 670. That's why I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that looks like a good trade. $5 risk. This is not going to end up costing $5 if I need to get out. So we're not going to just go. We're going to skip this. That's what I was looking at as Neil was talking. And then futures. Anyone who's wondering what I did with the futures, absolutely nothing. So what I initially wanted was. Can I zoom this in? Let me zoom this in a little bit. Okay. So what I initially wanted was a short around here. Right here, pretty much where it kind of turned the first time. But I put the order in after. So my best location, and we got real close around 11:30 or so, or this is 11:30 Central, so it'd be 12:30 or so. We got real close. We were within about 3 ticks of getting you a fill, and then it just went 10 points. And then at that point, I was like, I should not be taking that price again. So I canceled the order. That was the only trade I had. Remember, we were looking at 70 break. As long as it not just broke, but traded well below 70, there would have been a trade there to work with. And that once it broke and held well, that's when I put the order in, and then I never got the fill. So if I don't get the fill, what do? Nothing. I just move on and move on to another trade. So I've picked up Boeing on the buy side. I am keeping an eye on Lucid and the potential long here north of 39. And another name that has been absolutely on fire today has been Meta or Facebook. As long as it's FB, I'm going to go with Facebook. So we saw that hard move to the upside from 330 all the way up to 340. It backed down with the market. At this point, makes you hesitate a little bit on going for the long. But the cut point on this trade would have been around 332. As long as we stayed above there, that 336 through 332 would have acted as support. And it's finally acting as support now. So there could be a long on Facebook. I'm just not sure. I want to get into a Facebook long. With just over an hour left before we get imbalances, and we know imbalances can move these names, especially these tech names that kind of went up a lot. So Facebook, it is moving strong. It is setting up a level. We may have to mark it off for another day, though, because the risk might be a little too high for the trade at the moment. I'm just going to hold on to my Boeing trade, and maybe you guys can put some names in the chat there.
I got one here because we were just talking about, not just, but this morning, I remember saying to Brendan, I was talking about Bristol Myers because they had I guess it was like the buyback authorized. Why is it still on PTPI when I just clicked on Bristol Myers? But Juan mentioning that Bristol Myers surviving the crash. Yeah, and to be honest, I had not realized that Bristol Myers was down at these levels. Really, Bristol Myers was at $56? I actually hadn't even noticed that. Look, some of the healthcare names have been, I think, good value. Obviously, the direct. Sort of the direct names with vaccines have been really strong, but it's a strong breakout through the 50 period. I think they had the buyback, which got authorized as well. But some other movers here. Brendan, I know you've got another one here for us right now.
Well, there's ESSC, which is a SPAC. If anybody is into a SPAC this afternoon. 17.5 ends up being a level here. It looks like it's struggling at 17.5 right now. There's no real significant news on this. Lots of social media mentions, but no big news. Huge gap, huge move to the upside today. Comes all the way back to 17.5, guys, for ESSC.
I'm looking at the level, too. I'm like, it's barely even moving. It's up 23%, but the move might be over because, there was not a whole lot. That 23% is off the gap because the activity is actually 3 million shares, yes, but I want to know where that 3 million shares came from because it's got a 9-cent spread and it's barely moving around at the moment. So that window may have closed at, maybe a 17 break all the way up to 18. I don't know. Maybe this may not be the best of stocks to trade.
Whoa, what the?
Unless you caught it, yesterday or something and then held the overnight, or on Friday and then you held the overnight. So be careful though, because it's weird to see a 9-cent spread on a stock that's only $17. Brendan?
SEAC.
It's holding up again.
There we go. Sea Change International, which is another one. They're talking about this Thriller social video app, possibly in a deal with this SEAC, guys. So big move here.
Oh yeah. That's
Dang it. So anyways, it just halted again to the upside. I was on the bid this time. I didn't, obviously you guys pointed it out here in the chat when it halted the first time, but then it opened back up, breached $1. It opened higher than $1, by the way. So I mean, you weren't taking a $1 break, obviously. I'd be all over $1 break in a stock like this when it just halted up at 95. I try to just do that whole get in at the close, so get in at the whole price, I should say, and then see if you couldn't just get a quick scalp trade. So 126 is where it closed. Looks like an indicated open of $1.30. So it looks like it is opening higher. Volatility halts. There's still plenty of time. You don't have to worry about it opening only at 4 o'clock. That'll be in the last 15 minutes or so of the session. But SEAC second halt already. It was only able to stay open for a minute. Obviously, liquidity is going to be a bit of a concern when you see something like that. I want to come back to BFRI as we wait for that one to open back up. Yeah, that's going to be on the radar. Obviously, I've added it to my list here. BFRI then puts a capitulation and another failure at $8. I think this is the second time. First capitulation it manages to hold. The second one, if it comes closer to that 8 level, I'll jump back into this to the short side. Obviously, you gotta have stops every single time. I think this time giving it to an 8.15 or so will make sense. As long as I can get it close to $8, starting to drift a little bit higher here. PTPI is holding right around that 420 mark, so for now it looks pretty good. And I'll give you one. We talked about it in the trade of the day. It doesn't always have to be a winner. Sometimes you can just be wrong. Do not fight the trend on the stock. If I continue to dip by NVIDIA today, it's like, okay, I would have been long at 295 and stopped out, then I would have been long at 290. It's just sort of picking every consolidation level and trying to scalp it out and then lose and scalp it out and lose. Eventually, you might have yourself a winner at 98, but you're probably still going to be down on the day if you're fighting it that hard. We're still right around those lows. Current low of the day sits exactly at 288. And we're about 40 cents away. So NVIDIA under a tremendous amount of pressure. Forget about the non-split adjusted. If you look back, NVIDIA's got room to the 50 period, let alone some of the support that I guess it had on the wipeout Monday last week, and that's down around 280. So this 288, pretty key if it can hold up here today. The chips have not been the strongest. Obviously they've been fantastic performers here, but NVIDIA paying the price for its high valuation recently. It's going to catch a bid at some point. I think it's going to be fantastic. For today, this is just one that you didn't want to have to fight. We'll look back at this one again tomorrow. And more importantly, I think we'll look back at this on Wednesday and Thursday, because I think that's going to be your opportunity for some really fantastic moves. Anything that's high valuation that's been beaten up the last 2 days, there should be some awesome bounce back opportunities. Or, hey, I mean, there's a heck of a gap to be filled if you get something crazy coming out of the Fed as well. So these are names that have to be on our watch list for sure. Just wanted to point out NVIDIA trying to break low of the day. Like I said, I'm not fighting the stock to the long side. Otherwise, I'd probably be long again already and losing.
NVIDIA was one of my biggest misses for the day. I was looking at that 298 level, and then we kind of hesitated. I'm like, okay, well, let's wait for it. And then by the time we got it to it, I just put the order out as close to 297.50 as possible and never got a fill. It just wouldn't go high, and then it just took off to the downside, 288. That would have been a really nice trade. Damn NVIDIA, moving quickly. Okay, back to SEAC. For anyone wondering, by the time we open right now, based on the way volume is, auction price, theoretical auction price, or the opening price, 134 after closing at 126. Damn. With 282,000 shares at the moment. Obviously, that's a moving number. But for now, it does look like it's going to open at least 8 cents higher from where it closed. And when it opens, it could take off once again. So that's a question that remains to be seen. KSU is another stock I was looking at.
That deal's closing. New York.
What's that?
That deal's closing.
That deal's closing?
Kansas City Southern, that buyout deal's closing tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. So it's probably coming out of the index today, and then that deal will be closed tomorrow. Canadian Pacific buying them.
Oh, yeah, CP. That was the whole mess with CP and CNR, and that's what those nuts those stocks went crazy. Yeah. CP, I was looking at this, and I'm like, this is starting to go sideways. But as Neil mentioned, it is a deal closing. So I was just looking at it around 290. I was like, there's a lot going on. Again, it catches my eye when there's a lot of volume at certain prices. I'm like, what is going on here? So there you go, around 290. Was the deal price around 290?
It's cash and stock, but I mean,
Okay.
current valuation's right around that exact price. I just want to, sorry, and it's not to, I hate interrupting, but we're going to be open in about 10 seconds, so I just wanted to point up this SEAC, 144, 145 at a resistance here, then a $1.75. And then if it clears those levels, I mean, there's room on the stock. It spent a heck of a lot of time with support at $1, so it just opened high. And this is why I wanted that long trade at that price, because you still had runway to some of those resistance levels. And again, liquidity is at a premium here, so I would not be shocked if it were to halt in either direction after only trading for a few moments here. But 175, $2 to the top end if it breaks out this 145, 150 where it currently sits, right? So 145 was a level on the daily. It's currently rejecting that one. If that ends up being the top, it would have been a significant one on the daily chart. 175 being the next level up means do not hold a short. If you got a 140 short, if I get a 140 short, it's out at 145 or maybe 150 at absolute best, because next stop, in my mind, resistance would be that 175.
I'm looking over one of the names. So on my scanner here, I was looking at some names that are moving. Man, GM. What is going on with GM today? Absolutely getting slaughtered here from 63.5. Now we're down at 59.18, almost at 59 even, down almost 6.5%, and still moving strong. And it looks like it's starting to take out some support levels as well on the way. That 59.50 would have been something. We're kind of grinding through this area. So now it kind of opens the door for a multi-day trade here. You see it going back to the 6th. This is what I'm looking at on the 6th here. That was the last little bit of support below that 69 or 59.50. That was like 59.40 or so. Now we are below that. So now, as long as we stay below here today, there could be a nice little trade tomorrow where it comes back into that 59.50 and we work it all the way up to 60.50. So the risk on this would be $1 on the short side. And can we get $1? Yeah, the low was like 50. It's about 60 something. Close enough for me. For me, that's close enough. Risking $1 to maybe make 90 something cents, that's close enough. And then if we were to go right through, then you open up a brand new set of levels to work with as well. So that's worth a shot. But keep an eye on GM. I know this morning Ford, well, not this morning, but Ford was something we talked about.
It couldn't hold up.
It ran on Friday. It kind of went sideways, and I was like, the way it's moving, I don't know what I could do with it. And then it came all the way back up today, down 4.5%, dollar. And here we are kind of working back into support. But between Ford and GM, I think in terms of absolute movement, I think GM is probably the better trade just because of how much it's moved. It's moved for like $4.50. Ford's gone $1. Obviously, the price is like 3 times higher, but still. In terms of for traders or intraday traders, we want that activity. We want that movement. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on as they look up here. SEAC 125, below where we kind of halted here.
Yeah.
The majority of the volume should be sitting here at 126, pretty much where we kind of halted and not too far off from where we opened it, because we did open at 135, it looks like. 135 is where we opened. The fact that we're below 126 and below 135,
that's bearish.
Yeah, that's not good. So this may just be coming right back anytime soon. Of course, there's been some situations where the markets come off a little bit, or the stocks come off after doing this, and then it's been a secondary run like 15, 20 minutes later where it takes off. In this case, it would have to take off 150. But definitely something to keep an eye on. What are the futures doing? Not a whole lot. It's after making its move to the downside all day or all morning, we've kind of gone sideways. Pretty much from 11 o'clock Eastern time, we've kind of been stuck between 65 and 75, it seems like. So there isn't a whole lot, but this is what I would expect in a market that's waiting for Fed announcement, right? So the fact that today was as volatile or as exciting as you could call it, from 47.15 all the way down to 46.50, 65, and then going sideways. I was surprised by this movement, the amount of activity you got on the way down, but now we're going sideways. This is what I would be used to. The downside move initially, I was like, what, really? This is quite the move for a day, for a market that's waiting for a Fed to kind of dictate how this week will go because, well, we have volatility event Wednesday, then you have a major volatility event Friday, and then once you get into next week, after all of this is done, I would imagine you're going to get a really, really quiet week going into a long weekend. You might get some exciting movement, maybe some exciting movement on the first day, which is Monday, and then after that, I would imagine with Friday being Christmas holiday or Christmas Eve, which is still considered a holiday this year. Instead of doing the half day, they are completely closed. So you have a 4-day week, and you know everyone's going to be, the majority of volume is already going to be done between Wednesday's close. From 2 p.m. Wednesday until Friday 4 p.m., you're going to get an explosion in volatility and activity, right? As not deals, but like imbalances and positioning after the Fed and all that stuff is done. After that, how much volume is left before a holiday? I would imagine most people are going to try to get it done before the weekend as we go into next week, which I would expect it to be somewhat quiet, but I would be welcome to some extreme volatility, because that's nice as a trader, right?
Yeah, that's what you're looking for. And ultimately, some people have asked about Nubank here, and if there was more happening, I'd probably be all over this. Look, it's an interesting range is probably the best I can do for you here, in that I guess like 1050 showing you a bit of something here, and then VWAP, but it's volume the volume is very sporadic. It's 17 million shares, but it's really tapered off, and they came in chunks. So you really want that vol to come in. And speaking of volatility, I mean, it's definitely there in something like a Lucid. Now, Lucid, look, that's been a stock that has behaved pretty well for us. Today, I can't complain. I actually went long today in Lucid, believe it or not. I had the 38.30, and I should show you the higher time frame up to 40, and then I had a couple of decent shorts, and then didn't really hold on to it, or didn't really cover it what I needed to at the 37 bottom. Then I had a decent short at 38.40, again got a little too aggressive, holding it back to 38.80 up here. So it's still up on the stock because I found a way to make money on the long side, and the short had been a little bit tricky. At least I didn't play it that well. But now breaking through the top, and 40 still sets up as a bit of a resistance level. If you remember last week, what you were seeing on Lucid, when it would break up and fail. But this is really what you're concerned about. Like when it got to some of these 40 to 50 levels, and then just absolute rejections up there, you kind of know it's like a short the pop situation. And I understand. Rivian gets that whole car of the year deal, and Lucid's making a recovery today, but this is not through the morning levels and nowhere close to it. Like 40 was a lower high. Pre-market, it was up at 40.50. So I still think Lucid's got some room to go. It's a strong bounce back up. One would look at a double bottom from Friday's action, 35.50, and see a trend reversal, but that is a monster sell-off, still trying to recover. I think your breakouts are better at 41 and 43, and it's still having to do that in the midst of the Fed coming through and talking. Now, I guess the strength in Lucid and Rivian has something to do with why Ford and GM are under pressure here today. So it's kind of a tit for tat, but you're not really breaking out just yet in Lucid. I mean, obviously that bottom in 37 looks pretty good if you got it, but a bit of a tricky trade, and almost a fade for me if it got to 40 even. So I'd still have that one on the radar. You've made me look at Kansas City Southern. Yeah. I should be like scalping that for like 40, like just little moves here and there. It's just not really moving. But what is moving, like we talked about, is that BFRI. Back to the 1 minute chart for you guys. It's now getting back close to this $8 range. I've sort of been patiently waiting for it to get here to see if I can get some short. Again, I wanted a lower high confirmation. It's got 785 here. And I don't want to give it to the high of the day. Like to me, you give it to like 8 to 810, then you look for a bit of a reversal. So, I'm working into it. I just got 785 here. I'd take some more, maybe 95s, around 8, just to see what happens. But I want those shares on the way, test up and then have a failure at 8 or 815, and then try to get it on the way back down. So into BFRI, again to the short side. We'll see what happens here. I'm looking at Lucid. It's not quite high enough where I try the reversal on that name. And SEAC, Brendan just confirmed, they report aftermarket tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, aftermarket tomorrow. For the SEAC, which is going crazy, reports aftermarket tomorrow. I
see the chat talking about Blue Apron. I just looked at the chart. I remember when Blue Apron IPO'd. I'm like, man, there's a lot of hype for this meal kit company, or at home. It is a meal kit company, right? Blue Apron. It's a meal kit company, from what I remember. Yeah. And I was like, there's a lot of hype for that, and then it hasn't lived up. Like, if you can't make use of the time or make use of this kind of environment to kind of where everyone's at home, they're maybe fed up. Obviously you can argue that, if they're at home, they have more time to make their own food. Yes, but at the same time, if you're at home, you kind of get lazy a little bit too. You don't want to cook your own food too often. I mean, you don't want to eat out too often either. So maybe doing someone else or having someone else kind of bring the kit to you is easier. But at the same time, it's like Blue Apron's in quite the downtrend here. Let me pull up not the level 2. Let me pull up the daily chart. it has fallen off. It has been stuck in a range. And yes, I consider this a range. Apart from the $2 move to $29 explosion you had at the beginning of the pandemic, because everyone's like, hey, it's gonna, this is the environment for this kind of a company, and then it hasn't done anything. Topped out as high as 15 in April of 2020, bottomed out around about $3.50, and has gone sideways in between the 15 and 350. Now that is a wide range, and you can of course trade in between. You can play ranges outside, you can play the short or the fade against the top end of the range and see if you can go for a long inside the range, but it is still a range. As a day trader though, I mean, if the range is only 15 bucks and the stock itself is moving $1 at a time, it's gonna be very difficult to catch a position in Blue Apron. Now it is coming back to support. 80 even is support, 70 even is support, 60 even is support. You get my drift here. There's support all the way down. So at what point do you catch a bid as an intraday day trader? As an investor, that's a different story. But as an intraday day trader, it's kind of tough to catch a move on a stock like this. So it is moving. Yes, it is down 10%, but 10% on a $9 stock is 90 cents. So unless you catch the right location, which would have been, or that you timed this trade, you caught 9 even break right off the drop here at 11 o'clock, you would have been able to make about 30, 40 cents, and that's it. And then you kind of manage your way out and you're done. So you have to wait for another trade on Blue Apron. There's trades to be made. It's just like the timing has to be right. And when you have so many stocks that are moving around, you're probably not going to focus on looking at Blue Apron given the price point and the volatility that the stock has. Now I've got Boeing. Boeing's another one of those names, right? It's been beaten down. They've had issues. Pandemic has affected airline stocks as a whole, and generally airlines, when they make purchase orders and whatnot for Boeing and Boeing planes and Airbus. So I've been looking at Boeing instead of the airlines themselves when it comes to maybe these kind of reopening plays, travel plays, and today's setup, obviously it's down 3.5%, but it's found a base, so I'm working with Boeing. I think we have space to the upside. I think we can get to 200. Can we get to 200 before the close? I would like, I mean, I'm long at 197.53. I would like it to, but I mean, temper your expectations on a name like this. But hey, I would love to be pleasantly surprised when a market takes off. Now, since we're talking about the market, let's talk about this. It is moving up through 80. Well, it was at 79 something, but it is moving towards 80 on the futures, down only 0.5%. We were almost at 1%, I think. NASDAQ was definitely north of 1% to the downside. Now S&P moving to 0.5% to the downside. And we are coming back into resistance. There's still, actionable shorts available here as long as you get the setup for it. I'm open to going for shorts here. I just need the setup. Give me the setup. We've got about 47 minutes before the imbalances come out. I do not want to be positioned before that. But if you can get me something in the next 10, 15 minutes, I would love to be on the short side of this. If we were to rally strong, of course, why? Well, Facebook. Facebook has been moving up strong. That's an index name. And then Apple has also been doing well. It's at 178, found a nice little base. So these index names will affect how the index as a whole moves around. It does look like you're finding a base in all these index names. I know Microsoft wasn't moving around a whole lot earlier. It's still not moving around a whole lot. So Microsoft is a non-factor for today, but Apple, Microsoft, top two names in the indexes, and then you have Facebook as well, and I think Amazon's also moving around. So definitely some stability here across these names. Maybe you do get a run on the futures towards the end there as we kind of get close to the end. Yeah, and we are getting a bit of a bounce in the overall market. Now the NASDAQ trying to come back here, just got, like you said, breaking back a bit, but just to quickly show you guys, that 4,600 actually got 46,000, I keep saying 100, did get really tested. It just barely broke on Bitcoin there, and it actually just snapped back a little bit to recover, but it's still being tested to the downside. You just saw Ethereum break through, like it broke through its support from last Saturday, which was that 3,800 mark, and then continued to fall down. It actually has made a bit of a low here at 36 and 36.75. So the downward pressure overall in crypto has continued. I'm watching Lucid get close to that 40 target for a short for me, and then I was able to add to my BFRI position. Brendan?
OPTT. I thought this was Ocean Power Technologies. I didn't realize it was on the NYSE Arca exchange. OPTT just popping up here. Having a nice day. What market sell-off? 14% here for a clean energy name here, guys. Some volume coming in at the end of the day for OPTT.
Of course, there's going to be volume, especially in these names that, this is the time to move these names because 2.8 million shares, you get above a level, you get some news out, you get some sort of catalyst, and off it goes because everybody wants to participate towards the end of the day, right? So this is like the time for volume expansion. Oh, nice. Boeing giving me some buy-side volume expansion. Good. Market's taken off to the upside. That means Boeing's also going, it looks like. Somebody was asking, what charts do I use when I trade the futures? Do I trade individual stocks? I do on the show. If I'm doing it, if I'm not on the show, I try to kind of focus more just on the futures themselves. That also means that I don't take a whole lot of trades. Hence why I'm trading stocks right now, because if you just watch me trade the futures, yeah, go for it.
So you guys are going to see NOT that I'm in. It's a venture stock, so you're going to be like, why is this chart so weird? So we talked about Kansas City Southern, a cash and stock deal, and I think we talked a little bit about, at least this morning, ARNA, which is being bought by Pfizer for $100. But when a company gets bought for $1.10, this is what the wrong way there. This is what the level 2 is going to look like. So just to give you an idea of what it is that I'm trading, these are 100 share lots. So you have like 800,000 on individual gateways here in the venture. The venture is like a smaller cap exchange in Toronto here. And then you have like 3 million shares on the. So I mean, all I'm really doing here, and I do this on the side, I do spread trade. I don't really talk about a short on the show because unless you have the ability to make money from spreads and get on individual gateways, you're not going to be able to play this game. But it is just essentially get in, get out, maybe make a rebate, try and take that spread from maybe larger amounts of shares, then make that growth, which is what I'm doing here. So I was short at 08, I then got out and got long at 07, and I'm getting out at it's just, that's the nature of the game. So I understand it's something that you guys will see because we ultimately show you our positions here. But if I'm doing something which is not going to be all that useful to momentum traders, then I'm just usually not going to talk about it. But I'm going to explain that for you guys in case you're curious. I don't want you to get bogged down, like wasting your time looking at that stock when there probably isn't much for you to be able to do with it. Oops, I just went to Lyft when I meant to go to Lucid here. So Lucid gets to 39.75 or 70 or so. I guess that should have been enough maybe to get me into the short. It did do it was a complete failed break at 40 here in the morning. I'm kind of hoping I can get a 40 level. Obviously, that's going to maybe that's going to be like a little bit too patient. But with an hour to go, we get picky, and I said this probably a million times, we get a bit picky with the entries and exits that you make because they're likely to be shorter duration trades. Like on BFRI, like you saw me scalp in 10, 15 cents, get out for tight stops, 10, 15 cents, where maybe in the morning you're trying to get those bigger moves. We just have less time for it to work. So you're picky about your entries and your exits because you don't have all day to be right and hold a trade to give you that big monster mover. So, that's probably the only excuse I'm not already working into a Lucid short. Instead of sitting here waiting for it to be perfect. Speaking of BFRI, again, the only real trade I want to say that I'm in. It just got close to my first bid here, 70s and then 60s, and then I'll maybe hold something out for 40s and then VWAP down at 7 even as it comes down. And Flame White, no trouble telling you guys about it. And it's like, never trying to hide, oh yeah, he's in this NOT and he's not really talking about it. Trust me, if I thought there was something useful for you guys with the price movement you could take advantage of, certainly I would. And to that point, I did talk about ARNA in that deal because it did have volatility. Now, ultimately, I did think some buyers would come in because I think there's a limit to how much, even with a huge premium and pharma deals being under pressure in terms of regulators and how long it takes the deal to close, therefore affecting the time value of money. I kind of expected this would catch a better bid at 90, as some sellers would probably not want to continue to dump the stock because then they got to realize that profit. Like if you own this bad boy, down around 50, or you bought it at $60, and then you get the $100 cash deal, which will close maybe Q2, Q3 next year. Well, you can kind of hold off and sell it, later on, like right at the end of the year or the beginning of next year, and then book that as a 2022 gain. And the only risk you're going to have is that hopefully, it doesn't run into some, regulatory issues or rumors of regulatory issues in the upcoming weeks. That's still a possibility. Look, you saw what happened if you looked at PayPal and Pinterest. When the rug gets pulled on one of these, either the deal gets pulled, in this case I doubt that's going to happen because Pfizer seems pretty serious, or you get some chatter that the regulators could hold this deal up, which does happen when a big entity does buy a couple of others. So it's one of those things where I always felt it was going to catch a bit of a bid. I just sort of look back at this 90 level and said to myself, if it gets to 90, I think it'll hold up. It did breach it. I didn't trade it because it was very, very thin. And at the time, a lot of other things were moving that I thought were a little bit better.
That's the thing, too, right? You're always going to kind of make that judgment call. You can't take everything, so you take the ones that you think are going to move. If you're playing for absolute price action, then you're going to look for the momentum movers, or you're going to look for the setups that have the best potential to either move to the downside if you're short or to the upside if you're long. So you're only limited with capital. You're only limited with the amount of capital you have. So you have to be smart about it. Now, going back to futures, this is what I'm looking at. Now I want to take the short. I'm thinking that short could still be in play here, that 77-ish short that I'm looking at. I want to make a little bit more of a read here before I step in and put the risk on. But keep an eye on the futures here. Going back to what I was saying about why trade when I'm trading the futures. Just the futures. I just look at the futures chart. Sometimes, if I'm starting to notice that some names at the top of the index. So what I look for are the top weights in these indexes. Keep in mind, how are futures made, right? They're constructed with, in this case, the S&P 500. There's 500 companies that are put into one little basket. Each of them is given a weight, and then depending on how they move, you're going to have these futures contracts move accordingly. Now, at the top, in terms of weighting, Apple has a 5% weight in the S&P 500, a 5 or 4 something percent weight. It is the largest of the companies. So one company has 5%. And then you have Microsoft right there. The same two companies, Microsoft and Apple, have almost 10 to 11% each in the NASDAQ 100. So two companies in the NASDAQ 100 control 20% of the NASDAQ futures contract. So you get where the influence of these names would take the actual futures contracts depending on the move, right? So Apple goes to the upside. It's going to, as long as there's no pressure from the other names, the futures contract's going to go to the upside. So I do pay attention once in a while if I start to see abnormal moves in, say, Apple or Microsoft. But I cut the list short, though. It's going to be Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Google, and Facebook. That's it. Those are the only names I care for because they have the largest weight. I think they represent a total, including the two classes of Google shares, because there's Google has two different classes in the NASDAQ 100, representing 40%. Just those 6 names, or 5 names plus the two classes of Google shares, represents 40% or so of the index. So, I mean, that's all I really need to know. That's almost half the index just across 5 names, including Google's 2 classes. So it's just one of those things where sometimes you pay attention to both, you pay attention to the individual names, but most of the time you just pay attention to the actual contracts themselves. Just read the volume, figure out what it's doing, see where the resistance levels are, see where the support levels are, and then judge it based on what you're seeing on the tape. Sometimes, you build that up. Obviously, tape reading is something that you'll learn over time with experience, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can't start now, right? Brennan?
Another little one, pharmaceutical name moving here this afternoon, guys. This SNDX. $19, I guess. There was a monster volume spike that came in there. This one, there was news on this right when we came on at 3 o'clock, or it was at 3 o'clock, not 2 o'clock, but positive data on one of their clinical trials out there late this afternoon. So just breaking 19 here for SNDX.
Oh, another to add to the list. One that is already on my list, and you guys are pointing it out. We should be all about Peloton. Well, I mean, you don't have to make this trade, obviously, but we know this level. Why? Because on Friday, that was the pop and fade right through like that 41. It was fantastic for the rest of the day. This morning, did it give you the same thing? Of course it gave you the same thing. Why wouldn't it? And one of the things I talked about this morning is just like, if you ever see, the best trade I had was probably that Peloton pop and fade on Friday. And then you're coming back, gapping up to the exact same setup. I mean, it even consolidated at the same price in the pre-market, dropped essentially into the same support in pre-market, and then popped up and tested the same offer in the pre-market at the open. And lo and behold, oh my goodness, what did it do? It then failed and dropped right down to the same level. The only mistake I made was not getting it all out in front of this 37.75. Like just saying, forget it. It's the exact same bottom. It's going to turn to the exact same bottom. I should have just done exactly the same thing. Instead, I decided to try and work back into it around VWAP instead of taking it all out. So I gave some back. Really, really frustrating. It came on some other network or whatever that had a bit of a pop or caused a bit of a pop. And that's what can happen to you. But I'm back in it, and it's pretty simple. It's the third time I'm going to this well. This has been giving you $1, $2, $3 moves, depending on whatever you wanted to take it there. So if I'm gonna shy away from risking 40 cents up here, I'm not sure what the point is. It's already been so good at this price level that it's worth it for me at this particular time. So right back into Peloton off the top, and BFRI will. I guess I should probably supposed to be hitting keys and stuff. So I'll hit this one because this fee's on the desk. I don't know. I never seem to hit that key, and I know why, because on the new configuration, I can find it. On the old configuration, I have no idea where it was, Rob, so thank you very much for including that one back. But got the first 2 targets here on BFRI. I think I'll hold on for a little closer to VWAP for the last of it here, just in case it really flushes. We'll see what we can get out of BFRI. Now remember, first short, loser. Second short, small win, and then we took a hit. I didn't really like it off of $8. Maybe this failure here, when it popped up and failed off $8.20, that was probably worth it. I ended up getting it back at the same price anyway, so sometimes the market gives you a second chance. It doesn't always do that, but it did give me a second chance right around 8. You could have had the same trade when it failed to break the high of the day the second time. So BFRI starting to work into the downside for me. Peloton, we'll see, but the way I look at it, a lot of times when you play a key level like this on Peloton, I'm going to go back to the higher time frame. When it works and it works, you got to understand, like, you're going to go back to that well, and maybe you can go back for smaller size. That's reasonable, especially late in the day, or take a tighter stop or take tighter targets. Obviously, I'm going to take tighter targets this late in the session. Understand that the last trade is likely to be eventually you're going to lose at this level. Like, it's not going to work forever. It's probably not going to work forever. At some point, it's probably going to take out this 41 area, and then it's going to be a breakout. But until that happens, I'm going to work the short. Hopefully, the third time is a charm here today. But the 2 times before, it was an open trade. This is a bit different here at the close. V?
Hey Neil, it's like o'clock everyone, guys. We have more than 2,600 people watching and not even 300 likes. We would really appreciate if you help the community and will click the like button. It's very simple, very easy, absolutely free, but means so much to us. And the more likes and viewers we get, it helps us to improve YouTube algorithm, so people will be able to search us on YouTube easily. So guys, please smash the like button, and back to you, Neil.
It's like a clock, she says. That's pretty cool.
It kind of always is, right?
As long as you're watching,
it's
always like
you know what
a clock.
I just realized? So 2 things. 1, I realized I didn't tell you guys the poker story. 2, I haven't hit the like button myself, so I'll slap myself on the wrist. Thank you, Miss V, for reminding me. I'll quickly, because I did promise I would say what happened at poker. Prad did not win. We did a tournament style, of course, not for money ever. No money changed hands. We did a tournament style with about 16 people, a couple of tables. Some old traders from back in the day came by. It was a heck of a lot of fun. I can tell you that Prad acquitted himself pretty well for a bit, and then he got really reckless, but he's learning the game. I should have won. I did not, because aces don't always hold up. We're down to 3 people. Suffice to say that I was a second chip leader, but essentially it was the same stacks. I got aces, I flopped a set, and then the other guy shoved on me, and he basically had a gut shot straight draw, and I had a set of aces on flop, and he went all in. I snap called, obviously, because that's what you do when you have the best hand and near the nuts, and of course he hit his 10 for the absolute suck out. And as usual in our office poker games, I have the worst suck outs. I once lost like a decent sum of money in an office game. Well, we don't play for real money. When a guy played blind on me, and I had a full house, and he was blind. He never looked at his cards. He had to have 2 deuces. The only thing he could have was to beat me was 2 deuces. He turns over 1 deuce. He turns over a second deuce. I didn't say a word. I stood up and I walked out of the room and didn't say anything till the next day. When he asked me promptly, "Are you okay after that beat?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine. That's just the worst beat I've ever had in my entire poker life." So anyways, it was a fun game. We had a lot of fun doing it. Traders love to play poker. That definitely was good. I'm glad Prad stopped by. Next time we'll get a rune to play as well.
Good luck with that. What am I playing on? BA. I'm playing on Boeing here, trying to work. I'm going to get out soon. I don't like what it's doing around 198. I think I'm going to dump it. It's too late in the day to kind of hold on to this and let it work. So I'm noticing that as BA falls off, so is NVIDIA. NVIDIA just took out the lows here, 288. Now it's at 286.75, accelerating to the downside. And yes, I saw the chat talking about Sava. Sava back from the dead here a little bit. Yeah, it went from 42 to 47, 46.80 something. There must have been something coming out. Brendan?
I'm going to double check on Cassava Sciences. A couple other things of note. Morgan Stanley just popping up on volume here, guys. There's a couple of comments from Morgan Stanley about when they will return to the office. Also, they are, and I quote, will look at quote unquote sensible deal opportunities if they come next year for MS. So that was moving around a little bit. That AVCT just starting to pop up as well. We'll have a look at Cassava Sciences, guys.
All right, I noticed in the chat someone was asking, Arun, how was the date with the octopus? I'll show you right now.
You sent me pictures.
Right here? Oh, you can't see it. Oh, you got it.
You know, there's this amazing thing. Like, here's you could send that to me, and I could
whatever, man. It was good. That's all I say.
Look, the crazy thing is we have these like things in front of us now that we use to display the charts. They're called monitors. And the great thing about a monitor is you can display all kinds of things. You could send yourself an email, he could post a 2-hour chat, and then I could just show you. It's amazing what technology can do these days, Arun. You'd be surprised.
Once I get my new phone, we'll talk about technology.
We could actually be showing you the image as good as it looked when you sent it to me at the poker game. You could be showing everybody the tasty treat.
All right, well, I guess I'm
going
going
to
to email myself then.
BlackBerry passport out there and try and figure out how to put it on the screen so everyone can actually see.
Yeah, Neil taking shots. You know what's hilarious?
I'm taking all the shots.
He's holding on to his
because
BlackBerry.
you're a sellout. Because here's the thing, you guys probably know this, but Arun is selling out. He's actually getting a Pixel.
I have no choice.
I mean, you always have a choice.
I don't. I literally don't. My carrier is constantly messaging me, reminding me that my phone will no longer work at the end of the year. Or on January 4th, my phone will no longer be available for use. That's from my carrier. I don't have a choice. I'm being kicked off the BlackBerry network because of this phone. Brendan.
All right, so it looks like there's a petition being circulated from the Morehouse School of Medicine requesting expedited approval of Cassava's Simulflam, the Alzheimer's treatment that they're working on, guys. So that seems to be the news here.
Okay, Cassava Science, do your thing, Sava. I want Peloton to do its thing that it's been doing off this level. It's still flat, essentially, this trade. I got 69 as my, 40.69 is my average price there, and it's trading at 68 by 70, so basically flat. And I wish, look, you take the one that sets up, and Peloton gave me the level I wanted. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Whereas Lucid, which I also liked for a fade on this pop to the upside. Look, I like Lucid too. It never came to that 40 level. And it was a failed break at 40 where we covered the long. So either I get my price or I don't. And the consequence of that is you can like the direction. I like both of these for the reversal here at the top. I like them both. It's just one of them gave me an entry point, which risk reward made sense because it was a good price level, and I never got it in Lucid. And that might mean Lucid works and Peloton doesn't, but that doesn't mean I should have broken my rules and maybe gotten in too early on Lucid. So it kind of like probably say this too much. It is what it is, but you have to have that attitude sometimes. Sometimes it is what it is, and you don't get the price you want. So, and other times, the best thing you can do is not make a trade. So. I was never. Arun got I don't know why the trade of the day is not Arun reversing short in Apple, and then I think, anyways, we've discussed this before, getting Arun eventually at that big screen, but he also. When I was just saying I give up on NVIDIA, I know you were looking for the short in NVIDIA to reverse that trade. Mm-hmm. My approach to the morning was to hold on to the shorts that were working and just stick to those names, short the pops, and work back into some more shares of Peloton and Lucid when they were going town. But NVIDIA, like we said in the trade today, it should have been a reversal. Now, the low of the day break, I mean, I guess you could have just had that too. I just couldn't find my way into it. Instead, I'm shorting Peloton on obvious strength when NVIDIA continues to flush. Maybe we do test 280. Before the Fed, has their discussion, because NVIDIA just getting crushed as the market turns here. Brendan?
Not seeing anything on play here, guys. Dave & Buster is doing some volume here late in the day as well. Right. We got through 36, up to 36.5, and then right back, but big volume spike there for Dave & Buster's. Having a nice day, 5%.
I'm getting mad jokes about my BlackBerry. Look what you started.
Man. I heard Arun broke his tablet because he used a chisel instead of a stylus. Marcus, Steve, this is great. Sending smoke signals and scribbling in tone.
Someone asked where my pigeons were.
You guys are awesome.
I mean, my pigeons came back with this picture. Boom, technology. Look where Arun is. There you go. That's my octopus. He lost that battle. That was good.
That's what I'm talking about.
It was good. It was good. There's a pizza behind there. So, funny story. I said I was going to get two things. That pizza right there on the left-hand side, that's also mine. So I had both the pizza.
You ate all that?
I ate all that. All that. What's that? It's a lot of carbs?
Parsley. It is.
Oh yeah, I didn't eat that.
Decorative.
I kind of pushed that to the side, but no, I ate the pizza and I ate the octopus and the potatoes. It was good. It was really good.
Little wine there.
Oh, that's not mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was what? Yeah.
Yeah, that's not mine.
Well, you don't drink wine?
I don't know.
Really? Oh, okay.
No.
I didn't know that.
No, I'm a cocktails guy. If anything.
Fair enough. What's your? Do we have this discussion? Your favorite cocktail? Because I know we went around the group, but it may have been the day Sean was here. What is your cocktail?
Cocktail wise?
Yeah.
I'm a mojito guy.
Mojito.
I'm a mojito guy.
Okay, but only
if
with
I go-
cane syrup, right?
I don't really care.
Oh, you don't care? Okay, I'm very strict. To me, it's got to have cane, like, I don't know, whatever. Cane syrup is usually the way to go there, but I like a mojito too. Very good summer drink, though.
It's hard to get. A lot of places here aren't going to use cane syrup, especially a lot of bars. It's very specific, I think.
Man, you know I'm what? You know, come on. You know.
I know, but still.
West Indian blood. What do you want me to say? Got to do what I got to do.
But yeah, I'm gonna go mojitos for a cocktail, and if I go neat, it's gonna have to be cognac. I only do cognac. Yeah. So.
So anyways, we're not gonna.
Yeah.
Let's not talk. Everyone has that one thing that for them is a problem. For me, my last exam at university, in the beverage of choice was Hennessy, and that's about as much of the story as I can probably say on YouTube. So I'll just leave it at that. Peloton continues to go against me, so obviously we're going to be in a situation where shorting NVIDIA at the bottom would have worked. Obviously, BFRI is still looking okay there. And then clearly Lucid, if I got into it too early, would have worked as well. But here's 41 being tested on Peloton. I would remind everybody, though, last time it got to these prices, it didn't break it, it broke it by like a cent or two here today. Off the top here, but it did break it by about 20 or 30 cents on Friday on that pop at the open. So there is some room that I want to give it, just allowing it. And again, I want to have an area stop. I might have a hard stop on this if I was trading more things, but I'm just in the last of my BFRI, which is in the money. And then, of course, working this Peloton trade. So I can see how it trades up at this level, how much of a bid it catches above 41 before getting it out. It's way too it's way too far from the close to worry about a hard stop here. If this was 347, not 327, I probably would have been hard stop at 41. As a matter of fact, the fact that it just rejected this level, I might see if I can't slip in another entry point there, because now it's failed one more time at 41 even. I can give it just above that stop. So I'm going to enter into a few more shares there. It's just this and BFRI. I see someone saying Vinco Ventures is on the move. That move this morning, and we said, that came to the upside this morning, and I was like, yeah, I really don't see anything that made me love it after it was a muted move, and I thought there was resistance at 335. But that's not a bad bottom that it made here. It's back through $3, bit of a breakout through 3, but it still runs into the same problem I think that you had before. You're looking at that 330 level, and it has to clear through there. If I zoom the 15 out, or just go to the daily chart, I suppose. Like, it needs to clear through this before it gets going. So, that's one of those breakouts that hasn't broken yet. And this is 335, 340, and then a 330 on the 15-minute chart. So that entire area, maybe call it like 350 has to break out to get back to the 200 period, let alone $4. So not a bad start. Good consolidation for Vinco Ventures, but it's not at the price where it would necessarily excite me just yet. And you see it reject. And sometimes you just want to have it the day that it breaks out of that cluster instead of trying to force the action down here, because if it never breaks it, well, your recent support was 240. And if you end up getting caught buying $3 when 10% above was the next resistance level, and then you're risking all the way down here at 20% down, maybe that's not the best way to get into these things. Like, a lot of times, either you have that low in front of the support to a tight stop, or you wait for it to break back out and just take it when the momentum is a little bit bigger.
All right, what am I looking at? I thought Boeing was so close to getting out. It bounced right back. Sava coming back here. I don't know why that chart didn't change over. Boeing, okay, for now, I guess I'm holding it. I was going to get out. I was pretty close. I want to say I was about 1 or 2 cents away from getting out as we were breaking down through that 197.80 and change. So we are going to wait on Boeing. Maybe I'll write this out. The stop order is out there. So in the event that it gets stopped out, I'll move out of the way. But if it were to kind of go into the imbalances, we'll hold on. Futures coming off a little bit. Now it's making me think that, hey, you know what? That 77 area that I was looking at, maybe I do want to play in that area. It's about 4 points away, though. So we'll keep an eye on this. I may want to play on the futures on the short side. And Boeing moving up. Piton, actually.
Why is Rob?
Piton. You shorted Piton, didn't you?
Yeah, and I'm still in it. It just went back to break even, but I don't even know why I'm being shown this. Rob sends. Is this because this is what you like, Rob? Yeah. Okay, so anyways, he's going to bug me if I don't put this on camera. So Rob wants you guys to know that his drink is a slippery nipple. So there you go. I don't know what's in it. I've never had it. I don't know. It looks interesting, I guess, as a shot and maybe a challenge for a bartender to make. So there you go, Rob. Look, man, everybody loves you. We love you around here. So if you say you want part of that, well, I don't know why, but he just wanted me to send it. So there you go. Slippery nipple for Rob. That's his take.
Hey, Rob. Well, what's the taste? What does it taste like? Sugary? Yeah. That's about right. Okay. What's the thing on top? It's like a cream. It's a Bailey's. It's a Bailey's on top.
Oh, I'm not a.
No, I don't like that. Black licorice, Bailey's, and no.
Black licorice. I don't mind black licorice. Bailey's. I'm not a huge Bailey's person. Like that's one of those you either do or you don't. Look, I really don't think this Peloton. I should have added here when it broke that 41, by the way, so I'm going to cancel this. If it comes up another time here, back in and retest 40, there's just no point. I think at that point it probably breaks out. So it either works now, I've resisted the temptation to add it, either works now, or I'm getting stopped out through the high of the day on Peloton and giving a little bit of it back. BFRI, I think we can hold on to. We definitely want to talk about, it's like, what were we going to say about Peloton? Yeah, just that I kind of missed out there. And NVIDIA, I mean, it's still consolidating lower. If you want some names to look out for at the close, I mean, I know you're in Boeing here, but
I got Boeing.
I tend to think you want to look towards the tech names on the Fed week when NVIDIA is down 5.5%. Now, you look over to AMD, and that's gotten off the bottom. So AMD's found a bid, but that's a bid below, I mean, obviously, it's below that support that it had, that 136 going back to the Monday flush, or 135 back to the Monday flush. But at least it's held to a certain extent above that level. Like this is another name that has been doing so well. Whoops, that chart still has that crazy wick in it on the daily chart. But anyways, it's right. Like AMD is right at bouncing off its 50-period moving average. That's the key level of support. Each time it's tested off this level, you've had at least a 10% pushback, and that's the most shallow one that it's had so far. Again, a bit of a bearish sign. So there's a lot of risk-off feel going into the next couple of days here with the Fed, even in a name like AMD. If it gets through this, like, give me a break. I'll tell you right now, there's upside in the chip space. And whether you how you want to have your exposure to it is up to you. I think your long-term growth in terms of rapid growth is all, and probably the metaverse as well. That's your NVIDIA, and AMD I think is a more staple name. I think you want exposure to the foundry side of it, whether that's TSM or whether I like Intel for the dividend and the fact that it's going to hold up a lot better in pullback, and it's a turnaround play. So you get a little bit of everything with Intel there. But then Global Foundry is another one that you can have. Marvell, which just had an unbelievable quarter, right? Like they just had a huge quarter. They're down a couple of percentage points today. Someone was asking about Marvell, and I apologize. Someone in the chat was asking about this earlier, and I pulled out the chart meaning to talk about it, and then I got sidetracked with probably like BFRI or nonsense Peloton. But this is all the way back to a pretty key level. Like we had the strong move, the gap up, rejection of this 87.50, monster earnings, of course, then a consolidation break 87.50. That support was down here at 86, and you're right back to that cluster. So if it wasn't for the Fed, this would be where you could have a really tight stop swing by. But the Fed's here. So, I mean, I would be holding off on this. Support's at $80. If the Fed says something that the markets don't like, you might be able to pick up Marvell at $80 in the next couple of days. I think that's one of those, if you're looking to get into this stock, like why not? Like that 80 double bottom, even for like a swing, if we can see it, I think could be a good one. But it's got to chew through this cluster. I just think it's at a decision point, and there's no need to buy. Like it's way too risky of a trade. You don't have to make those types of things. Allow the market to digest the Fed. If you're into that type of sort of binary swing, then maybe play options or something like that. But I just had the two on. Peloton, I hate you. You were so good. How are you not going to work in the afternoon show? But BFRI is getting pretty close to VWAP in that last little target. So hopefully I can ring the register on that one. It's been a roller coaster here on BFRI. And one thing, if you're going counter trend, trying to short something like this, always take your outs, right? Like get out, don't just average into it. And then when I have a couple of consecutive losses, I get a little bit more picky. I allow it to make the high and then short when the momentum looks like it's breaking. So I get the lower high instead of trying to get the actual high. So I don't know. I just find that works for me. If I've lost a couple times in a row, maybe I'm more aggressive if the read was even better. I'm on the bid right here. Give it to me. gimme, always gets. I'm sitting right here, and you just saw it go to 718. I'm sitting right there on the bid. It's going to turn around a little bit. We'll see if we can't get that fill. Obviously, this can't turn into a losing trade. 25 minutes to get flat. BFRI looks like it's going to be okay, but Peloton not really going for me. And man, NVIDIA is having some trouble. That SEAC, by the way, thank you guys for pointing out, it is climbing back, but it still hasn't broken that $1.45. That's that key level. I mean, obviously, if you go to the daily chart, like that's this recent spike high at 145 where it's rejecting. You also had one up here at 175. In the event that 145 would have broken, looks to me like it's not going to just yet. If it does, maybe it's like a 4 o'clock kind of thing. They do report after market tomorrow.
All right, I'm starting to work my way out of my Boeing. I'm completely out now of Boeing. I took my 52 cent winner on Boeing. It's starting to kind of die down at 198, so I don't need to be part of this really. So we're going to walk away from this. I don't need the danger of this imbalance kind of messing everything up for me. So take my wins while I have them. Now going back to the Fed, what do you trade? Let's just say, obviously the market as a whole is something available for you, but what do you trade when you want to focus on what the Fed is specifically doing? Well, where does it impact it the most? You look at financial names, you look at safety measures, or in this case, I would look at gold. So let's just go through a couple. BAC, Citigroup, good names to trade around the Fed because they impact it directly, right? The rates or purchase changes or anything like that would affect directly to these names. So I'd rather trade individual names that would get directly impacted by a Fed decision versus, let's just say, the index as a whole, because it affects each company differently. So you're going to get a lot of whipsaw action as a whole, in at least in the initial move anyways, on the future side of things. So BAC, Citigroup, good names to trade. On the financial side, you also have GDX in the AMEX, GDX in the AMEX, gold. So if you wanted to take a look at how gold would react, that's also a big mover when it comes to Fed movement. So GDX on the gold side of things, and then you also have TLT if you want to look at the Treasury bonds. That's a 20-year. Let me get it up. TLT. That's your Treasury right there, 20-year bond there. So if you want to see how it's going to affect each, not just base, but each market. If you want direct movement because of the Fed and not get this whipsaw action, TLT, GDX, financials, those are going to get immediate moves, reactionary moves. You can backtest it to the last time the Fed kind of made an announcement or even a comment, and you're going to see the type of movement that you're going to get from this market. So TLT, GDX, and the financials, I think, are the way to go on Fed day if you want individual names. Now, they're going to be volatile, of course. If you are right now trading the futures contracts, personally, I would kind of just put that aside at least for the first hour, well, not hour, first half an hour or so, because keep in mind, the way it works is Fed announcement, initial report, boom, that comes out at 2 o'clock on the dot, and then you're going to have 2:30, I believe, Q&A. So what happens at 2 o'clock can be reversed at 2:30 based on what the Q&A results are, or based on what the Q&A answers are. So keep an eye on those names as we kind of as we get closer and closer to the Fed, right? That's definitely something to kind of be worried about in terms of volatility. How do you participate? You choose where it's most volatile and where you can get the cleanest reads. And those are the names I'm giving you guys.
And I will do this because I like the fist bump. We could actually do a fist bump, but anyways, we'll do that one. I think it's always fantastic information. And remember, Sean's back. Guess who's back? Sean will be back tomorrow. I actually have the day off tomorrow, so I will be, dropping my daughter off at school and then picking her up. Should be a lot of fun. But what was not as much fun was Peloton just stopping out at the high. So I actually moved my stop. I mean, BFRI, fine. We had the win there. We just got out of VWAP, so just in front of VWAP. So it looks like that short will definitely be the best afternoon trade for me. Peloton, we reloaded. I would have given this more room. It's now 340, so like I said, there was room to be had above 41, but it spiked up and I missed that re-entry point there, and then it took out that 41. I'm not saying it's for good. Maybe that was too tight of a stop, given the fact that on the 15 minute, on Friday, it actually broke that level. It broke 41 and got a few pennies above before the rejection, so it's entirely possible it hasn't really broken this or violated this price level just yet, but this late in the session, I'm just going to cover it. Just sort of get flat on it with 20 minutes left to go. I am still looking at that NVIDIA because this is a name that I want to track going into the close. It's just unavoidable. at the end of the day. It's so incredibly weak. I look at Marvell holding up some levels. I look at AMD holding some support levels. I look at NVIDIA, which is getting beaten down through its last level of support. And some of that has to do with its valuation. AMD has always been relatively expensive. And I think at this particular point, it's going to get relatively beat up here. And if everybody thinks it's the biggest meta play, then it's also going to be the one that when it comes, oh goodness, that's non-split adjusted chart, so I got to zoom in. When it eventually comes down to that 50 period, there's going to be a lot of people probably looking to try and buy it. And if you look at that 275 area, it also coincides with its last massive monster break. So, that's what I think I'm holding out for in terms of where would you pick up some like some NVIDIA there, guys. And someone's asking, is that in the chat? So Somos Crypto asks this here. What broker are you using to trade? We're at Day Trade the World. That's why we can short just about everything. And then, oh my goodness, I'm not even getting into that other question that you just asked me there. I think it's Airy Pages. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to answer. Come on, what are we talking about? It's a trading show. I can't do that. But thank you guys so much for obviously we can have a lot of fun here. Peloton. Obviously, I think that level could be valid for tomorrow. But as I mentioned to you guys before, eventually, these types of levels, you eventually lose on it. It works. It's not showing my trade from Friday, but it works. And when it doesn't, it could turn into a breakout. Now, obviously, Peloton could be under some pressure given its valuation going into the Fed. But hey, if this level around 41 a quarter was so good to short in front, eventually when it breaks, the reverse is going to be true, and it's just going to be a good long off that level. This was just support turning into resistance. Once that support's back in, look at the room it has. It actually has more room gross-wise from 41.5 up to this 45, 46 than it did to that downside or what it put into that downside. So yeah, I'd be willing to take a Peloton break as long as it doesn't happen tomorrow because that's my day off. But certainly Wednesday or Thursday, maybe we're taking out this level to the upside. And then the short that we had that was so good, it turns into the complete opposite. But you got to be willing to do that as a short-term trader.
Yeah, absolutely. And flexibility, I think, is the key word, especially as an intraday trader. One thing that we definitely have to add to the list of stocks to keep an eye on, I'll be here tomorrow for Neil. NVIDIA, man, absolutely. We missed that trade of just south of 298. What do? We got to look for something to work with. We know 302 is going to be the stop, or 301 is going to be the stop. That's going to be in play at that point. Now, we're quite a ways away from that level, but there's got to be some sort of a setup that we can work with at some point. This market's going to set up some nice levels, whether that's an intraday move up into the mid 290s or whether we kind of overnight action kind of through this 285 area, whatever it is, there's going to be some activity. Given the movement you're getting in NVIDIA today, there's got to be a play. The other name that's got to be a play, Facebook. It's absolutely going nuts today, right? We've got a decent level. We've seen the level. It's right here between that 334, 336 area-ish. Somewhere in there, there's a marker that we can work with. We know the stop is going to be somewhere around that 331, maybe even 330. I might run that down to 330 once I actually figure out the trade. But there is a long here. There is going to be a level to work with as well to the downside. And then if it stays within the bands, I think there's a trade to be made. So whichever way we decide to go with this, preferably inside the range or inside this 336 with a nice little long would be the play. If it breaks through the top, that's got to be something I got to figure out when that actually happens. But I'm not in a rush to kind of make that trade. So levels are setting up that we can work with for another day, maybe a quieter day of somewhat. Boeing is setting up nicely as well. I got out, but this could be something we can work with later on. So that's one play we can set up for another day. Boeing. Pfizer was a nice little run today, so that's something. There's some that's the thing, right? When you get this late into the day, you kind of have to just set something up for another day because you're not gonna. It's too much of a risk to take the shot now. So you just wait for the better setup whenever that is, and then you just let it go. And kind of, I have a list of. I feel like I came in with a list of like 30 or 40 stocks that I had alerts on. Majority of them already hit. And now we can just walk away from most of them and set something else up for the rest of the day. Brendan?
GBT, a couple of people talking about this. Global Blood Therapeutics with a big move here late in the day, guys, from 29 up to 32 on decent volume. They were talking about their annual meeting earlier on this afternoon, but didn't really catch a bid until the last few minutes here. 29 up to 32 for GBT.
Strong move there, and another one up a little bit more than 14%. EFOI, I see you guys talking about that. Yeah, it's back up at like 475. You're asking why am I not in this stock? Well, I hesitate to take breakouts which have hard rejections. Look at the hard rejection at 5 on EFOI from Friday, obviously. So it's right at that $5 mark. It's pretty late in the session to start thinking about, oh, would you go long up here? I mean, if you have it. That's not 420. It's like a 430 break when it took out. It's not Thursday. That would have been Wednesday's high. That's a much better break because you have risk to $4. Maybe you give back to 4 the even or VWAP, whatever you like, and then you have room to that $5 top. Up here, that's a no-fly zone. That's taking a stock when resistance is 20 cents away and your support is 430. You got to be thinking that's probably where you're going to guess that 430 buying comes in. SEAC, it did try to move again. So I will, I want to come back to what's moving for you guys. That 145 never broke. It's probably too late in the day. Well, maybe not just yet. It's getting close to too late in the day where, unless the volume was tremendous, I don't know that I like the break. Certainly a lot of traders that are going to, maybe you're trading into the aftermarket and that's your jam. Then 145 is maybe a better breakout for you guys. They're looking for 145, maybe 175. Until then, I mean, I think even like a 42, 43 short is still a little bit in play, although we are running out of time for that to happen. There's certainly, we have a time restriction for our trades. For a lot of you guys, if you are looking for aftermarket style plays, it definitely can be there for you. I also want to point out, if you're watching that BFRI, now it's really starting to capitulate. If this is earlier on in the session, obviously I'm going to be a little bit less aggressive, maybe one exit there, one in front of VWAP, and then I'm probably holding back to like 650 or 670. It's just a function of it being so late in the session. And that is the only reason I'm getting out. And it looks like it was the right call to get out of Peloton. Look, you're not going to fight it forever. It's now at 41.25. Like I said, eventually it could be a breakout through that price. If it ends up being right here, then by the nature of what we do, being flat at the end of the day, then I will have missed out on the entry of that break. What I'm obviously hoping for, or I'm hoping for you guys that only day trade, that you can trade this tomorrow off of the same level. I will not be here, so I guess I couldn't do it anyways, but there's a lot of room. If it reestablishes support at 41.42, it's interesting that the day that it breaks back above this price, the catalyst would have been commercial that I heard about, but I obviously have never seen because I'm not really, I don't know much about Sex and the City, but I never saw the commercial. I just heard about the whole thing. Weird catalyst, but if that's what gets it to that price level, fair enough. The market is still under some pressure. The Fed is still going to be a bit of a story. So I would always caution initiating. It's one thing these day trades. It's one thing like quick little swings. But if you're going to go counter trend here, when the Fed is going to be coming through and possibly shocking the market, and it's not to say they shock the market. I think we kind of understand that there's going to be that probably expedited taper, and then from there it does raise the possibility of 3 hikes next year. You want to watch out for that dot plot if you're into that sort of a thing. I think if it gets a little bit too, if the language is a little bit too aggressive with the I guess the speed of when they could do those hikes, things like Peloton are going to be under pressure in that environment. So it can have what looks like a technical bottom breakdown here that gets you up to 46, 47, and then what happens? It's not gonna, none of that matters technically when the Fed comes through, and they move markets. You guys know all about that. SEAC, which I was kind of on the fence about taking, it broke 145. The lack of execution means I did not take it. But I think if you got this long, if you can chew through 150, 175 on the daily is certainly that bigger level. And then Apple. People talking about Apple. Yeah, that's the market coming down in here, and Apple breaking through its low of the day. Another stock I just eventually gave it up when it broke 179. You cannot fight these things forever. I mean, Apple's been by far the best performer overall the big cap names in the market. So you put things into context. We did look at support at this stock, and we loved it around 172 to 174 here. That's where the dip buys were kind of coming in for you on Thursday and Friday and Wednesday to a certain extent. So those are the levels you want to watch as the Fed comes in. Apple poised, I think, better than some of the other names in the tech space to handle a high interest rate environment, but there had been some demand issues that were talked about. This is just a flush coming in now on Apple. I'm looking back to see, Apple's breaking with the NASDAQ not breaking lows and the ES still holding low. So this is pretty isolated. You are seeing some names hold up here. Yeah, I know, Doug, SEAC. I was so on the fence with this one. And you guys, if you guys watch the show enough, it's like, do you take breakouts when you have X amount of time for it to work for you? And 345 to 350 is right in that gray area of like, is there enough time for it to get to the level that I want? Is the risk to reward going to be good enough? Because I got to give it at least 10 cents here. So like it has to break 150 at that point. I kind of decided against it. That's obviously the wrong call. Level was good. Double top breakout. That would have been the only level I would have liked for a break. It's just when I set up the rules that I have for myself at the end of the day, it wasn't quite. It was right in that window. I just didn't really like it. So it's not a great excuse, but you have to have your own rules. When you're day trading, you have to be flat at the end of the day. It's an arbitrary time period that we have to enforce. So it kind of leads yourself to some of these.
I just wanted to go off. Imbalances did come out. 350 imbalances came out. Looks like SWN sell side, KSU buy side, 2.6 million shares. 13 million shares paired. You were talking about that earlier. SWN and KSU on the buy side. Now, you said KSU was a delete, yeah?
Well, I mean, the deal's closing.
The deal's closing, so stock should be coming off.
Yeah, don't auto buy KSU because of a buy imbalance.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
Don't do it.
Even though, as you can see on this imbalance, this market has taken off to the upside, or KSU specifically has taken off to the upside. The issue is that it should be a delete because the deal's closing and it should be removed. So this is probably going to change. Where is KSU? Right here. That 2.6 million with the 13 million share paired. Yeah, that should change at some point. So we're going to keep an eye on that as it flips. This market is moving, or the stock is moving absolutely nuts to the upside. So we'll leave that alone. Let's take a quick look at SWN because that is the leader right now. SWN, a million. This is not going to matter. Okay, 2.8 million shares on the sell side with 57 million shares traded. Yeah, okay, that's not going to be that big of a deal. I think in terms of absolute impact of an imbalance, you're not going to see much from SWN on this name. And IVZ, I believe that is a fund. That is an ETF. So that's probably an AM. No, what is it? Is it New York? Yeah, it's New York. What is IVF? I know the name. It's Invesco as a whole. There's got to be more to it. IVZ, sell side, 2.3 million shares as well. So we're kind of waiting a little bit more info. Remember, 350 is the first release, but then at 355, you get another update. So that 355 update should provide more than enough opportunity to kind of get a gauge on how KSU, specifically KSU, because that is the one that should be removed from the list because of its deal. That should be the one that you got to keep an eye on as we kind of move down. So KSU, what else we have up top?
Wow, Apple.
AT&T. Is Apple still falling?
Apple's still falling, man. Apple's down 2% now. You had
I had it, but I got out of it though.
And here's the thing, I'm down on Apple because I tried the long, and I know the long was a good trade on Friday buying the dip, but Arun got flack in the chat. Like, why are you shorting Apple? Look, if you're a short-term trader, if you're a day trader, if you're a swing trader, anything for the short term, like you can't say no essentially to anything. If a setup is there and if it's a positive expectancy, then you're just supposed to do it, right? Like we just played poker on Friday. You might not like a certain play, but if it's a positive expectancy and you know it to be true, you just do it, right? Like you've got to, like, I'm not going to sit there and, like, aces don't always hold up, but you're not going to sit there and not raise them. You got to do it. Like, you got to play the strong hand. So, I'm glad Arun actually, I didn't get myself into a reversal on Apple. I didn't get into one on NVIDIA. It's easily the worst mistake, I think, today after some of those highs. Apple was also rejecting the $3 trillion mark today. That's another thing that was happening. It got very close, within 65 cents or so of the $3 trillion market cap, and then made that reversal. So there was a lot of things that were lined up there. I decided to give up on the long, but there was a nice chance to get a short off a 180 fail break that I wasn't looking at because in my head, shorting Apple on the day trade, it just wasn't there. And
Apple's got an imbalance of 615,000 shares. But it's already paired 7 million shares. So there is an imbalance that's actually large, or there was an imbalance that was decently sized on Apple. 7 million shares plus the 615 puts you at about 7.8 million shares on Apple to the sell side, of which they've already matched a decent chunk. So there's a little bit left. So definite interest in Apple as a result of, I guess, today's move, especially given where we've been trading in the last couple of days there. So decent strength that was initially there has absolutely evaporated on Apple as selling is being done. Keep in mind, though, given its lofty, I don't want to say lofty price targets, but lofty movement or strong movement in the last little bit, Apple, I believe, is being downweighted in the indexes.
It almost has to be.
Right?
It has to be.
It's starting to take over a little bit more. And I remember there was a special situation where Apple, there was one special imbalance from NASDAQ, or rebalance from NASDAQ, where they got rid of a ton of Apple shares because of how fast it was going up. Here's the update.
Where's NVIDIA on the imbalance? I'm trying to find NVIDIA here.
I don't see it.
Someone asked for NVIDIA, and I don't.
ASU got bigger.
It's obviously not very big. NVIDIA is 143,000 to sell, so that's not a gigantic imbalance for NVIDIA, but it is a sell imbalance on NVIDIA at 143. And look, just because, I'm not going to only talk about the things that obviously we're interested in, some of these big caps and the imbalances, but there's SEAC. It goes to 169, so close to that 175 mark. It's a good setup. Like I said, I hope somebody, Hunter got it, so good for you, Hunter. Good trade there. And yeah, it is. You definitely, Daniel, you're going to limit yourself to a lot of trading opportunities by going only in one direction, obviously. And I think that's something we always have to do better. And that's why the trade of the day was NVIDIA for this specific reason. I only have 4 minutes to go. But the reason I wanted to do this trade of the day is because the second I saw this out here, I'm like, okay, I'm disciplined about the out in NVIDIA and giving up on it. And then that same level turned into resistance. Oh my God, that's got to be a reversal price. When the market's coming in, you have the risk off with the Fed. There's just so much going on that should have made that exit point tell me, why not try the short? There's not a lot of risk to be put up there, whether you put up a 96 short with a hard stop at 97, whether you give it 2.5 points to VWAP. Either one of those is a perfectly reasonable trade. And for someone who likes shorting, it's just one of those things that I should have had this. You definitely don't want to give yourself, sell yourself short by only trading one direction. I usually do say sometimes it can help to have a bias on a stock as a day trader on that particular day. But you can't be so married to that notion that you will not reverse at any particular point. Sometimes you've just got to read those signs.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? As a trader, it doesn't matter what you feel about a stock. Don't emotionally attach yourself to a stock. Money is money. It doesn't matter how it comes, whether it means going short your favorite stock, the stock that you love. Would I short BlackBerry because it was a great trade that was set up? Yeah, I don't care. I use a BlackBerry phone and I love BlackBerry phones, but at the same time, it doesn't mean I'm not going to short the stock. To put things in perspective, there used to be, I don't know if they still exist, but there used to be a company on NASDAQ called Aruba Networks with the ticker symbol ARUN, my name. I still went short. I still made money. I don't care if I went short myself, but it's just one of those things. Or it doesn't matter how you feel about a name. It's all about what the chart tells you, what the reads are, and then you go from there. But money is money. Just take it where you can. As a trader, just be open to wherever it comes from. Your job is to kind of just figure things out, kind of set trades up, work whatever you see in front of you, and then turn that into cash so you can actually keep on trading and make it a career, right? If you find other reasons to trade, if you're gambling, and I do separate the trading aspect from the gambling aspect because there is a big difference there. If you're doing things like that, then maybe trading isn't for you. Maybe you should hit up the casino or something. But trading is a job, and your job is to analyze the data in front of you and turn it into money. That's all it's about. Nothing more than that. As I'm watching Apple, let's keep a quick eye on Apple.
NVIDIA is still falling too.
Of course, NVIDIA is still falling. Damn it, NVIDIA! I would have had that trade too, because based on the way I would have managed, there's no way I would have gotten out there. Okay, that was a missed trade. Damn it. Okay, so Apple and NVIDIA definitely names we're going to keep an eye on tomorrow when I am here for Neil tomorrow. Remember, Neil's off, Sean's back, and I'll be in Neil's chair tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's unbelievable. 6% downside here. I did see that SEAC. Look, it got to that target. I'm glad some people got that trade. It's certainly going to be worth one that's worth watching going into that close, just in case. I mean, it got to 175 on a dime and turned. So sometimes these levels in the daily chart, there's nothing that scientific about it, except for when it had a harsh rejection up at 270 up here, and then the next day put in a double top at 175, or the next couple of days, double top at 175. People look to take profit at obvious places, and no one's trying to hold through a level like that. They're looking to get to the exit at that particular point. Now, I happen to know who's going to be on the bell. I know Rob is lowering the bell. I guess I can't really say what type of sweater you got there, Rob, because can you even say that's a Cosby sweater? He's got a really good Cosby sweater on, but I understand why that's not a cool thing for a lot of people these days, but it is what it is. We got about 30 seconds to go till the close. Miss V is on the bell. She didn't wear green. The market most certainly is not green. It is one of those days where yeah, we're just flushing going, and now down 1% in the overall market. In the ES, I should say, in the NASDAQ, 1.5%. So not the best start to the week. Keep in mind, it's Fed. It's an accelerated taper. So countdown has been dropped. Miss V, let's ring it here. Hopefully, it's put the smile on everyone's face. We had some good trades here today. And there we go. Market is closed. Ooh, I mean, we know where it ended because we've been watching these futures. SCAC closes at 175. Right there at 175, actually breaking that high.
Yeah, Apple, actually, you know what I wanted to look at, just because KSU was one of those big names that we were looking at. Well, how did KSU do? It spun around. Of course it did. This is exactly what we were worried about. KSU was a buy-side imbalance, and it absolutely got rocked right at the end because the imbalance probably changed. If I look hard enough, there you go, sell side, 180,000, 20 million paired. This is why sometimes knowing, even if the imbalance information is there, you got to know what's happening behind the scenes. And Neil kind of informed us about what was going on with KSU, and it should have been removed. And that's what you get on KSU to the sell side.
Absolutely. And well, we kind of know how things ended up, but we got to go to Brendan just to see the big board. I see at least one thing that was positive, oddly enough.
Yeah, pretty red, guys, as expected. Here we go. Look at how we ended the day. 0.9 for the S&P, the Dow 0.6, 1.5 for the NASDAQ. Quite the tumble there into the close. Yeah, 2.8 for Bitcoin. Look at Ethereum, as we were saying, 6% now to the downside. Not too good for cryptos either.
Yeah, not the best day. We sort of, a couple of times in the show, we did mention to you what was going on in the crypto space. And it is what it is. Some of those, I guess, last Saturday levels have been breached. Still trying to hold 47,000 on Bitcoin. So still under pressure. We got the Fed taper coming up. Sean is back tomorrow. I have the day off. You get more Arun, which you guys better be enjoying. I can tell you this right now. You get to have a little bit of a different perspective. It's perfect. You want to get Arun's perspective when the Fed is talking and during quad witching, because that's when you have those opportunities in the future. So thank you, Arun, as always, for everything you do, filling in and giving us some valuable time off. For Rob, who's doing his dance in the you-know-what sweater, and Lucas, who's just chilling like a villain. You've got to be hot in that toque, Lucas. It's like, it's not that. I have my sweater still on, but it's been warming up a little bit in the afternoon. We're both in sweaters here. Of course, as always, big shout out and thanks to Brendan doing a fantastic job, and Miss V. They're both still talking work, even as we're about to get out of here. Trader Prad's around there somewhere. I don't know if you got him on camera. There he is. He's got the deuces. And a shout out to Greg over there, who organized a fantastic poker day, even though I did not take it down. Aces get cracked, but it's a good fun as always. Please enjoy the entire week. Enjoy tomorrow with Sean and the crew. I will be off, and we'll see you, well, not me, but you guys will see this team tomorrow. Trader TV Live. See you tomorrow.